12 hours, so I could easily do it.
I wouldn't, she was offended, I wouldn't ride,
So we
I wouldn't
would
ride
sit
up
there
the
and I was
elevator with
trying to
her.
be like,
No,
I said, no, I'm not going.
Well, you
and we would go through everything. It doesn't tell you the day.
Well, I don't,
And I want to try to get a hold of my kids or, whatever.
That's when you know it's a good vacation.
I finished my antibiotics last night.
We had no idea
you
what
too?
day it was, anytime that we were there.
closer to the window today.
So coming home
And they
to
don't
Bangkok,
start.
the thing from Bangkok was,
This is
I think I'm gonna go home just to stay well.
Hong Kong, so we only had an hour and 50-minute layover, so clearly we missed the
This is not
layover.
good.
It was going to Chicago. Half the plane missed it, and they didn't hold the plane. There was this small Chinese lady screaming, and I ended up getting them buying us tickets to Los Angeles, Chicago, and Traverse City. We didn't fly out of Traverse City, so we had to go get our car. It could be. And Chuck looked like he died about 12 hours
Another
before
picture of him
that.
somewhere. I took his picture on purpose. I went, oh, there
He
it is.
could not sleep on planes, he just doesn't.
No, that's
Yeah.
not.
He's bigger than I am. I
Not
can
at all.
stretch my legs out under the seat.
Right, yeah.
Not the dude who's on the. Yeah. No, that's not.
I bought him the most expensive compression socks possible. You are not stroking out on me. 30 layers. There will be no aneurysms in Asia.
Yeah, a little more excitement.
Oh, did you enjoy the singing Sunday?
15 seconds.
Zero issues.
I saw
No,
you there,
no
but you
problem.
were way over.
No,
in the
nothing.
section. I
Like,
wasn't
No,
there.
this was the,
No, we
Northwestern
had
Michigan.
A small Chinese.
oh, yeah, I saw you over there.
Oh, I
Yeah.
owned her. I owned her because she kept telling me
I
we're
love,
going to
I
Chicago on
love.
Wednesday. I'm like, it will be Tuesday again.
Storm.
And she's like,
I'm like, oh my gosh, it sounds just like it.
and she goes, finally, she's trying to say to me, what do you want? And I go, I want free tickets.
I like how when
And we got them. And the usher said, it's like, Chuck goes, that was the stupidest shit I've ever seen you do.
All right, everybody, welcome. I don't know what day it is because I've got a cold. It's Thursday,
Don't know
I
what
really
day it
don't know
is.
what day it is.
February
25th.
26th or 5th?
25th.
25th, 2016. And it's time. Can we pledge allegiance, please? And Rodetta, will you lead us on the pledge, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Brian, can we do the roll call, please, sir?
Commissioner Albers,
Here.
Commissioner Grams,
Here.
Commissioner Herron,
Yes.
Commissioner Kachaturian,
Kachaturian, here. I was watching him struggle.
At least he didn't call you Kardashian.
Commissioner Kropa,
I'm here.
Commissioner Leroy,
Yeah, she's sneaking in.
Commissioner Merrick,
Here.
Commissioner Max Bauer,
Here.
Commissioner McKelly is out and excused, and Commissioner Roth.
I am here. All right, we come to that time, the first public comment. Ryan, will you read the rules for the public comment, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address the Parks and Recreation Commission, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended, MCLA 15.261. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the commission shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Thank you, sir. Anybody in the audience want to start out with public comment? Seeing no one rush up to the podium, we'll close the public comment for now. And we'll go on to additions of the agenda. And I do have one addition to the agenda, and it will be called, where do we want to put that? I think, let's do that right after the special, or maybe we should do it beforehand. Can we do it as actually E1?
Do
Move
what?
everybody down?
You have-
We are going to do a reappointment of secretary for this board.
Okay.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented, the addition of E1, reappointment of the secretary to the board, moving everything else down one as accordingly.
Support.
Any conversation, discussion on that? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. We have an agenda. So we'll come to the first agenda item. Actually, before we get to that, we should do some introductions, if we don't mind first. We have a couple people here today that we're going to get to know real quickly. First, we have Jen DeHaan. She is the new administrative deputy administrator here at Grand Traverse County. Jen comes to us with over a decade of serving local governments, including Lake County Administrative Office in California as a deputy county administrator officer, and Kent County, Michigan Administration Office of Management Analysis. DeHaan's experiences include labor negotiations, grant development, solving complex budget issues, engaging in and monitoring policy and legislative activities. And she also provides high levels of project and staff management. Most recently, she served as an independent counsel in all aspects of managing local units of government. She holds a Master's of Public Administration degree with a concentration on public management and a Bachelor's of Science degree in Economics, Accounting, Management, and Planning from Grand Valley State University. Jen, welcome. Thank you for being here. Anybody any questions? You want to come up and just say a quick little hi? We promise not to be too hard tonight.
Well, good evening and thank you, and thank you for your warm welcome. I've enjoyed my time here. I've been in Grand Traverse County for a little over a month now, and I've had an opportunity to sit down with Chris and Ryan and start to learn and understand what we offer in terms of our amenities here in Parks and Recreation Services. So I'm grateful to be here. I look forward to learning more about what we do in this great community and becoming a true member of the community. So thank you.
You too.
Thank you all. Welcome. All right. Another introduction we have is a seat that was expired, and we had to appoint a new commissioner. We thank Patrick McIntyre for his service with us for the expiring term that he took over. But we are going to introduce a new member to our board tonight, Tom Cacciadorian. Did I say that right?
Close
Dorian?
enough.
Close enough?
Don't work so hard.
Thanks, Tom. Tom is an art and director and photographer. Did some stuff for Spiritual and Healthy magazine. Mackinac Living, art director. Wow. Mackinac State Historic Parks, contact designer and photographer for them. Bachelor's Arts, major in English and minor in film. Master of Arts in English from Michigan State University, and Wayne State for the first one, sorry. Yeah. Traverse Area District Library Board of Trustees currently, from 2005 on. Montessori Parent Advisory Board from 2001 to 2005. Excellent. Traverse City Area Macintosh Users Group, 1998 to 2004. And 2002 and 2004, Northern Michigan Mensa. Uh-oh. Do we have to act smarter now? Tom, welcome to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with the introductions being done, we have our special orders of business presentation. Number one, a reappointment of secretary since Patrick McIntyre was our secretary and his term expired. Commissioner Kropach.
I will make a motion to appoint Pete Albers as our secretary.
Okay,
I'll support that.
support that. Mr. Albers?
Surprise. The short straw.
Accept. Any other discussion on that?
I'll make a motion to close the nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Pete Albers as secretary.
Support.
Support over there. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Sorry, Pete, you're now secretary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a
Thank you,
hard
thank
campaign.
Should have been Kevin. Kevin is missing. We should have made him.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, yes,
I
that
can't
was an
do that to
opportunity.
people stuck in airports. So.
Darn it. All right, moving on to our second order of business tonight. Tart Trails update and future plans. Miss Julie Clark, thank you for coming, and please update us on all things cool and trails.
Yeah, I will be happy to. Thank you. I will figure out if I know how to make this happen. I think I do. All right, sorry. Required concentration. I'm Julie Clark. I'm the Executive Director of Tart Trails, and I'm very pleased to be here before you tonight. I promised Christine that I would keep this short and sweet. She's not here to hold me to that, so you're in for a treat. Actually, we did meet with the district a little bit earlier so that we could make sure we were coordinating a bit better, and I promised them I'd only take 10 minutes. So I'll get rolling. My first thing that I wanted to say is I owe a huge debt of gratitude to county staff, both Parks and Rec and the facilities. I just wanted to take this opportunity tonight to let you know how fantastic they are to work with, how much they help the trail system look great, feel great, and how much time and effort they spend and work with us to keep the system up and running. An example up here, this was a United Way Day of Caring event that was held last September. If you remember what happened August 2nd, there happened to be a little storm event that came through here. The trails around the region were shut down, and I'm proud to say that within 48 hours, all our trails within Grand Traverse County were up and operational, except for a small section within the Vasa Pathway that remained closed until we had a great working relationship with the DNR to do some significant activities out there. This opening of the trails, this getting it done within 48 hours, which was pretty remarkable, wouldn't have happened without the incredible cooperation that we had with county facilities and Park and Recreation. So I got to put it out there. They're some of the best people we have to work with. Paul Johnson and Janice and Christine are just phenomenal. And it's all season, all year. We have a snow removal contract that is not the easiest thing to put together between Acme Township, East Bay, the county, and TART, and it has gone beautifully. We've heard only positive things from trail users, and we could not have this run without Paul and Janice over there at facilities. So just wanted to give them a shout out. So I'm just going to give you brief updates today on some of the major projects that we have underway. This is by no means everything that's happening out there, but these are the big rocks, if you will, that are coming in terms of trail development and expansion in our region. So tonight I'll give a brief update on the Traverse City to Charlevoix Trail effort, which is something I've come before you a while back to talk about, and I'll give you an update on as to where we are. I'll just highlight what's happening in Acme Township, and then Boardman River Trail, and then finally the Boardman Lake Trail, which is what I started really coming to you tonight for, because there's some big opportunities happening around the lake. So the first one, this is we've talked about this in the past. This is a regional trail connector between Charlevoix's system of trails, that's the Little Traverse Wheelway and beyond, and the TART Trail system here in Grand Traverse County. The gap, that red line that you see around you, is the work of over 3 years of planning with various public entities and stakeholders to identify a preferred route that would connect the trail at Bunker Hill to the trail, the Lake to Lake Trail in Charlevoix, which ends at Bells Bay Road right by Fisherman's Island State Park. This trail is a pretty exciting opportunity. The map that you see in front of you is the top of the hand, if you will. It's about 325 miles that would be created once this gap is filled. So over 300, well, not quite 300 miles exist today, so that's what you're seeing. The red line is the proposed Traverse City to Charlevoix Trail. It's a little over 40 miles, and that 40-mile gap would bring together 325 miles of trail within northern Michigan. That includes both legs of what used to be called the Governor's Showcase Trail, the Iron Bell Trail. This would connect us to both of those systems. So it's a pretty remarkable and exciting project and fills a very important gap. So where we are, after going through, again, what was a 3-year planning process, we came up with a preferred alternative. This is just conceptual. This is just groups that have had interest and ideas in this trail connection for decades, getting together and trying to work through different scenarios. It was a pretty intensive planning process made up of all the different communities between Traverse City and Charlevoix. And what they found is a preferred route that is about 46 miles, estimated to cost over $14 million. And it is comprised of trail, like off-road trail, like the TART Trail. It would be composed of shared facilities, on-road facilities, as well as bike routes, so more designated on-road facilities. What we're doing now is we wrapped up the concept and development plan in December, and we are now working with the various communities to bring this forward. So it's not just, the plan that was generated by a very robust group of citizens, but more so adopted by local municipalities, and eventually we hope to see adopted by counties both in Antrim, Charlevoix, and Grand Traverse. So we are working with local municipalities now, like Acme, Elk Rapids, Charlevoix, Norwood, those kind of folks, putting together trail teams. So those have stakeholders within those communities working on identifying how and what the process is to get the trail adopted within their communities. So it really is a community effort. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the trail will not be brought to you by Tart Trails. It will be a trail done by and with and for the community. So that's where we're going now, and then it's actually pretty exciting because Acme has some big plans going forward, and it's anticipated that actually a piece of this trail will be on the ground by 2018. There are other pieces that we're working on within Acme Township. So while the regional trail is definitely a big rock for us, we also want to make sure that we're making important trail connections within communities. And Acme Township has identified some important connections that they want to make. So we have contracted with a firm, Gosling Zuback, to help identify a potential trail connection between Bunker Hill, which is what you see at the far end of the map, to the Meyer development, and then over to Lautner trailhead where the Tart exists today. Essentially, we've been roadblocked for about 30 years. That's going to be a theme tonight, 30 years, that things wait. So we're done waiting, and instead, Acme Township wanted to pursue what are other alternatives. So working with, again, private landowners and the Road Commission, we'll try to figure out how we make connections so that people can get to where they want to go on foot or on bike. So this is exciting, and we're delighted to be able to work with the township. The other big project that's on our plate is the Boardman River Trail. This has been under works for several years now. I've had the pleasure to work with Christine and Alyssa on this through the Nature Education Reserve, and of course this is our big partnership project with the district. The Boardman River Trail is a 45-mile loop. So what you see is the entire system, the yellow line, the orange line, and that dark red line starting at Mayfield consist of the Boardman River Trail. That's 24 miles, about 9 miles. I'll get to what's on the ground in a minute. Some of it is on the ground, but what it does is it overlays with essentially existing trails, and then it fills in the gaps where some of those existing systems don't connect. So the 24-mile Boardman River Trail that starts at South Airport Road and ends at the North Country Trail would make a 46-mile loop, creating a pretty fantastic trail system for our region. It was somewhat ironic, fun, I don't know what the word is. At the Trail Summit, the Michigan Trail Summit last Monday, there was a national speaker that came into town that had been doing this sort of work in Colorado, and he just happened to pull up a map that he had done on Google Earth, and he had talked about this fantastic trail that would exist that could exist around the region. And what he did is essentially highlight the Boardman River Trail. So it is something that we're excited about for the community, and mostly because we have an opportunity to showcase existing trails, again, tie those gaps together, and work with partners like the district to really help people access some fantastic systems that are maybe a little underutilized or not so well known. So the Boardman River Trail is a 9-mile, so 9 miles exist today. We had work bees for the first time in the Nature Education Reserve last summer and fall, and they got a good couple miles on the ground thanks to the partnership with district staff. We'll be working with the district on how the trail goes down with dam removal. It's all right. And this is going to be a really, again, what we like to do and what we do best is working with our partners. So the Nature Education Reserve, the county, the township, and of course the district. So that's exciting. So the last project that I wanted to bring to your attention tonight, because this is something that the county has helped kickstart here in the Grand Traverse area, is that 30-year plan of the Boardman Lake Trail. So you see the red line around that map, that is existing trail. So there's approximately 3 miles of trail around Boardman Lake. 30 years ago, there was an incredible vision that was put forward to have a trail circling this lake, and we're excited to say that we took that first tiny though it may be, that first step forward, building off of some alignments, some work that has been done on the past, and the county secured a grant through the Coastal Zone Management Program that is being matched by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority in October to help us move forward and identify or do preliminary design between 14th Street and South Airport Road. So December, we brought a planning team, Prine and Newhoff. They are an engineering and landscape firm out of Grand Rapids, and they are going to be helping us identify design options. Because what we think we know is this corridor is going to have potential options for trail. There are land gaps that we currently have, meaning we don't have all the land lined up, and we're going to have to figure out how trail looks, either within public right-of-ways or working with those private landowners if they're willing. So February launched a pretty intensive public engagement process that will go through March. We're doing focus groups. We have an advisory team of which Jen was able to come to, Steve was involved with as well. And that is added to the owners group, which is the county, the city, and the township, as well as a multitude of stakeholder groups and interviews. And then there's a public meeting that I'll talk about in a little bit. So these things are happening. What we want to do is better understand what trail users like about the existing trail, what they like or what they think they're going to like on the west side, what they don't like so much about their current trail experiences, and what they're hoping to get in terms of amenities or design options for the west side. So we will be going back to the city, the township for final approval on design options. There are three really important pieces for the Boardman Lake Trail. The first is identify those designs. So what does that trail look like? Second piece is how much does that trail cost once it's on the ground to maintain? So we get a design, that's one product that will come out of this. The second is how much does this trail cost, the new trail to maintain, as well as what's the replacement cost and operating costs of the entire trail around the lake. And the third piece will be a capital development plan. How much is it going to cost to build the west side of the trail? What are funding scenarios that might be applied? This is really going to be an exercise for the county, the township, and the city to determine how a project is brought to life, how it's paid for, how it's put on the ground, and how it's taken care of over its lifespan. And what we want to try to do is provide information so that answers and solutions can be found. Like I said, we brought in Prine and Newhoff. They are a landscape and engineering firm out of Grand Rapids and have done a lot of work on trails. We really liked them because they're a nuts and bolts kind of group. They understand maintenance. Scott Post, who is our primary contact on this trail, has done a lot in terms of leading maintenance efforts and identifying how to use construction techniques that lead to lower long-term maintenance costs. So we're excited to have him and Matt Lewandowski, who's the landscape architect. He can bring the pretty to those pictures. So this is just the scenario that we're working in. That dotted corridor is the Boardman Lake corridor, the west side, that we're working with between 14th Street and South Airport Road. So that's what we're going to be asking people to talk about and comment on. There is a public open house on Wednesday, March 9th at the University Center, which is NMC's Cass Road complex there. So we invite the public to attend. We've sent out some press releases. You may have seen them, but you can find all of this on our website. So all the information that's generated, all those public input sessions, the maps, any of the focus group comments, all of that will be collected and available for the public on our website. So that's the update. I don't even know. I'm close to 10 minutes.
We didn't use the crook. You're good.
By hook or crook some days.
Any questions from the board? Comments? Thank you, Julie.
Well, you're
Great
welcome.
job. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I'll be excited
Very
to
hard
come
work.
back and give you more updates.
Yes, we always like that. Thank you so much. All right, Natural Education Reserve Update and Strategic Plan. Marcia Barbara Crock.
Okay,
Come on
good
up.
evening.
And we have Steve Largent with her.
And
Thank
we
you,
have
Steve.
Steve Largent, yes. And I'm just going to, this requires attention. Requires attention twice. Here we go. Slideshow. Oh. Thank you. I'm doing this without glasses. There we go. Okay, we're here tonight to tell you about the entire project that we do, everything that we do, but I'm going to make it fast. Everything that we do with the Conservation District is more than the Natural Education Reserve and more than the Boardman River Nature Center and more than the trails. And Christine said, I don't know that they ever really heard everything that you do. So you're going to get the thumbnail sketch whether you are ready or not. What we do, we support sustainable agriculture, and that is through our MEAP program. And that's not the same as the testing that they give children in schools. The acronym is MAEAP, and it is the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program. And we cover 4 counties. It is Leelanau, Grand Traverse, Antrim, and Benzie counties. We also train future generations of conservation leaders. We do that through our natural education programs, and we're the gateways to the natural world, and that is through our many trail systems. And also, we restore the Boardman River watershed, as you know. We have worked with local universities and did a survey, as probably many of you know, in 2005 and 6. We did a survey as to whether or not there was a need for a nature center in the Grand Traverse region. And the answer was yes. And as a result, today we have a nature center, and we just updated that survey, and in fact we finished it last week on the 20th, and we heard more about what people would like to have in the nature center and at the NER. So, and more of that will be coming to you soon. And then I just put in pictures of the Nature Center being built and the exciting progress that we made there, and many of you know about that, and that the Nature Center is staffed primarily with volunteers. We have very little paid staff time committed to keeping the center open. Of course, we do have people who do the planning for programming and so forth. However, much of our work is done through volunteers. A nice aerial view of the Nature Center. And the Boardman River Nature Center, we meet community needs. We have a Peepers program, which is a preschool program, and that is on Tuesdays, and we average from 15 to 25 preschoolers every Tuesday, which has been a very good program for us. We have what is called the NEST program, which is Nature Education for Students and Teachers, and that is a field trip program for area schools. And then we have a day camp in the summer, and it is one of the only nature education day camps in the state. We are proud of that, and we also had it licensed last year by the state of Michigan, so we are now a licensed day camp, which we're proud to say, and should help you sleep better at night because we have mitigated a lot of risks for liability issues. Our outreach efforts, we're community partners at the Boardman River Nature Center. We do land management, which we have contracts with the county, and Steve is going to tell you a lot about that. And then the private land services, and I spoke to you about the MEAP program. We also have a forestry assistance program that is in 3 counties, Leelanau, Benzie, and Grand Traverse. And we have the Northwest Michigan Invasive Species Network. That is a coalition of about 40 organizations throughout a 4-county area, different 4 counties. It includes Manistee, not Antrim, but the other 3, Benzie, Grand Traverse, and Leelanau counties. And now, take it away, Steve. And I'll be back.
Thanks, Marcia, and hi, everybody. A lot of familiar faces. Hi, Jerry. Just saw you last week. Let's see if I can get this to advance. The other way. No, not that way. There we go. Okay, I'm here to talk to you about our Parkland Stewardship Program and also a little bit on the Boardman River Restoration Protection Project that we started in the early 90s. The county, the Grand Traverse Conservation District manages over 3,000 acres of public parkland at 10 different locations throughout Grand Traverse County. And the Parkland program started in 1992 through a cooperative agreement between Grand Traverse County for the Natural Education Reserve and the City of Traverse City at Brown Bridge. And it was through a startup grant from Rotary, and that's how our Parkland program started. And Since then, like I said, we've grown to over 3,000 acres that we manage now in the county. The Natural Education Reserve is 505 acres, and it's the home of the Nature Center. And there's over 7 miles of trails and 4.5 miles of Boardman River frontage. And it's a critical north-south corridor for recreation, including the Tart's Boardman River Trail, which runs right down through. This is Phase 3 of the Boardman River Trail that, as the dams are removed, we're working with TART and the Natural Education Reserve Advisory Committee on the best location for that trail down through the former bottomlands. But it's also important from a wildlife corridor standpoint. So this is, our kind of central park as it's been described in the past, but more importantly, it's a corridor for a variety of valley services. The Natural Education Reserve was dedicated on July 4th, 1976. It was acquired, as you probably know, the property was from Consumers Power in 1969 for $1 because consumers wanted to get out of the hydro business, and so they offered it to the county for $1, and what a deal. So.
Let's not go there.
I'll sell them back and we'll give them double.
But 7 years later, recognizing the value of that property for a natural education, experience for the area, it was dedicated for that purpose on 40 years ago. Actually, it'd be 40 years ago this July 4th. And the property is used by thousands every year. We probably have about 10,000 visitors to the Nature Center every year, and many of those go out and use the trails. And but with that also comes maintenance needs, and those 7 miles of trails, as you can see from the upper, I guess it would be left-hand picture, the trails and the infrastructure do deteriorate, so we go out and get supporting grants to not only put in, to upgrade the trails, but also increase it, again, in partnership with TART and the hiking club and other groups that utilize those trails. As Julie referred about the August 2nd storm, that blew down a lot of trees, not only across the trails, but also across the river, which is a water trail, and so we were able to go in there and remove a lot of those trees for safe navigation. And then, of course, now coming up, we have the removal of Boardman and Sabin dams that we're going to be assisting the county with the management of the removal of those dams. And, of course, the replacement of the Cass Road Bridge, which is going to be starting on March 8th with the tree removal. And then there's going to be road closure scheduled for March 28th. Cass Road will be closed through this section as the Road Commission works to replace this bridge. If you look, you can see that it has, it's high enough and there's enough room for not only a wildlife corridor, but also for the Boardman River Trail to go underneath. And again, this will be heading south through the bottomlands of Boardman and to Beitner and beyond. So actually, this is Phase 3. Phases 1 and 2 have already been complete out by Brown Bridge and then in Hoosier Valley area. And so this is Phase 3, and so we'll be working with TART on that. And a lot of these, if you look, these are volunteers. We get a lot of volunteers, and like Julie said, we had TART work bees out there last year to work on these trails where we could. Where after the drawdown, we were able to go in and do some work to beef up some of the trails for the near term, and in the long term will be, once the dams are removed, we'll be able to get more permanent trails in those areas. So we also provide invasive species control. This was key at Brown Bridge, and will also be key for the Boardman bottom and Sabin bottomlands as well, because as you remove these dams, as those bottomlands become exposed, they are just an incubator. They're just a blank slate for invasive species. So we have to make sure, and Pete saw that when he was part of the Dams Committee, Boardman River Dams Committee, through that whole process. And after that 17-foot drawdown, a lot of invasives moved in, and so we will be working to control those. We also, as Marcia said, been working on the Boardman, restoring and protecting the Boardman for over 20 years. That's been my primary job. So far, we've restored over 250 erosion sites, but lately, it's been, again, the making sure that the removal of the dams and the restoration work that follow is done as best as we can as money allows. And so this is some of the work that we did with our partners out at Brown Bridge. Those trees that you see, that's called tow wood. We were able to get that donated from a local timber harvester, and those were put in to protect not only protect the toe of the bank, but also provide that critical habitat. And then we also went in and, again, invasive species control, but we also went in and planted native seed mix in the bottomlands, and this is that same bend now, just this last year. So as we move forward, we'll continue to restore the banks, plant native trees and shrubs along the banks, and help with the restoration of the bottomlands. So you will be continuing that work not only at Brown Bridge, but also at the Boardman and Sabin bottomlands will be other things that we do. We have the Boardman River cleanup, which is slated for Memorial Day, Saturday, Memorial Day weekend, if anybody wants to get out and help clean up the river. We also use volunteers to do much of our work for invasive species and control and like that. So I'm going to move it on to Marcia.
Thank you, Steve. We recently received a grant from Rotary Charities, and we hired the ANCA group, which is the Association for Nature Center Administrators, and we had them come out and look at the Nature Center and tell us how we could make it more enticing, more exciting, more inviting. And what we asked them specifically to do is how can we integrate the Nature Center with the trail system and with our nature education? A tall bill to fill. However, they were able to help us come up with some good solutions. And they offered us some guidelines about short and long-term goals. And now we are just looking, we're in the exploration and discovery stages right now of what we can do next. We continue to do community outreach. Of course, there will be funding needs. And we did, as I said, we just finished updating the survey of community wants and needs, and we got lots of good ideas, in fact hundreds of good ideas of what people would like to see us do. And so we will continue to expand and enhance our programming to meet those needs, and continue working with TART to work on our trail improvement. Some of the things that we're doing, where are we going? Where we are going right now, some of the things we have started expanding our operations to Saturdays. We haven't been open on Saturdays for over 2 years. And now we have, in the winter, we're open second Saturdays of every month, and we just received a grant from Hagerty, and we'll be open on Saturdays in May, all Saturdays, with just a little bit more money if we can raise that, all Saturdays from May through October. And that was one of the highest requests from our survey. So we will be doing that. We're looking at program enhancements, exhibit enhancements, because our exhibits have not been enhanced for a while. They need some enhancement. And we'll be looking at kind of the grand plan in the future. This is just a preview of what we hope is a coming attraction, is that we will be doing it is the Boardman River Nature Center, so we want to focus on, guess what, the Boardman River. And we would be looking at the Boardman River and the ecology of a river, the Boardman River, looking at the geology of the area, and perhaps focusing exhibits indoors and outdoors on the geology. Also, the first inhabitants that were in the Traverse City area. And then what came next? Forestry. And after that, dams. So all of those things and how they tie to the Boardman River. Right now we're doing some things and making plans to enhance the trails and make them more interpretive and have enhanced programming. And one idea that came out of this study that we did was having little backpacks so parents could check out backpacks, and they would be filled with exploration materials that a parent could use with their family to go out and do some things on the trails that engage them differently than they are currently being engaged. We would have some outside exhibits, and we would expand the Nature Center to be without walls. So when people came in, their experience could continue on the trails, and we would enhance the trails in such a way that they could carry that educational experience with them much farther than just the confines of the walls. So, thanks to the help from Grand Traverse County and from Parks and Recreation and from TART and all of the good people of this area, we are able to continue our mission of inspiring exploration, appreciation, and conservation of our natural world. And I would like to thank you very much for having us tonight. And I brought you a couple of presents. One is a map of the Natural Education Reserve.
Can't bribe
So when you come out, you can go hiking and know where you're going. And I also brought you a brochure of what we have going on between now and the end of May. And we publish these 3 times a year and have them available at the Nature Center as well as other places around and on our website. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Marcia. Any questions from board members? Anybody?
I have one question. What hours are you open if not Saturday?
Well, we're open during the week because much of what we do is with school-age kids. So we are open right now during the week, Tuesday through Friday. And very soon, we will be open on Tuesday through Saturday.
Not on Sundays?
Not on Sunday. Given a little more funding, we would like to be open on Sunday, and lots of nature centers in Michigan and around the United States.
So is it primarily a school program then?
No. It is not primarily a school program. It is, though, in addition to other programming, it is a school program. We also have various environmental groups that meet, have their meetings tonight. We have the Audubon Club meeting at the Nature Center. And it's a reciprocal relationship where we don't charge them to meet, and they return the reciprocity by volunteering for us. You heard us speak about volunteers about 20 times tonight, and they volunteer for various programs. They provide programming if we're having a program on a Saturday or an evening, then they might provide programming. So there is that relationship so that we're able to both do well with the resources we have.
Any other? Commissioner Merrick.
Steve, you had talked about invasive species move in because it's really fertile. Where is that coming from? Is that birds flying over and dropping seeds kind of stuff, or is it stuff coming down the river that's...
It's not just because it's fertile, it's a blank slate, and a lot of invasive species are what's called early invaders or primary species, and so they come in and take advantage of that, that empty landscape, that barren landscape, and put down roots first, and then their seeds, multiply from there. But a lot of them do come in from the waterway. A lot of them that have drifted in. A lot of them are from air, brought in, from air currents and like that. But yes, a variety of ways. And birds, yes.
And I would add that lots of them are in this area because people brought them here and planted them, like garlic mustard, because they like to eat it, and they brought it and they planted it, and now it's everywhere, whether you want it or not. And Phragmites, and baby's breath, and, a variety of the invasives. Yeah, ornamentals that people planted and they bought at local nurseries, planted because they liked them and they were pretty. And what makes them invasive is that they multiply quickly, but also that they don't feed the food chain like native plants do. So they don't feed the insects don't feed the birds, you get it. So there can be large dead zones when you have a whole bunch of Phragmites, for example, or any of the invasives. So then all the insects die, all the birds die, and then pretty much it becomes a barren desert. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Anything else, commissioners?
Well, it's been our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, we really appreciate your efforts. We like that. There is some possible action that could be brought up. If one of the commissioners wants to, it's in your packet.
Oh, the proposed motion.
Proposed, yeah. We want to continue to work with the NER and Trails groups, and when we get into doing more of our strategic planning, we want to bring in these groups and have them part of our strategic planning so they can give us advice and we can ask of them. So
I'll make the motion to continue to partner with the County Conservation District to identify projects and improvements, use existing structures at the Natural Education Reserve to provide recreational and educational opportunities.
Support.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, moving right on, we're flying through cell tower buyout proposals. Brian Morrow, did I say it right? Yay. Brian, come on up, and Ryan's gonna probably lead us a little bit on this, because Ryan's been working with Brian.
Absolutely.
And if you guys can kind of give us what's...
Do we have copies of these that we can put up there, or no? Proposals?
We have the proposals.
We
You
do.
guys have them in front of
We
you?
have it in front of us, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have-
That'll work
yeah.
just fine.
Yep.
Like I said, like John said, I'm Brian Morrow. I'm with a firm called Unison Site Management. I'm out of Grand Rapids. Our company is, just a little background, we're the largest independent cell site lease management company. Been doing it about 13 years. I've been here for 11 of those 13. And so that's kind of a weird thing though, right? Cell site lease management company. It's a niche thing. It's very odd. You won't hear it very often anywhere else. And I've been talking with Chris and Ryan for probably, 2 years now? You've probably heard this before. And, I'm here probably more or less to do a Q&A type thing on it, but I'll give you a brief overview of what these say, what they mean, because, some people might look at this and say, I don't get it. I don't understand what this proposal really is. And what it is it's basically monetizing your existing lease agreements at these two sites. So you get a monthly payment now. We're saying we're going to give you a cash option for 40 years, okay? Which we use a net present value equation to come up with. So it doesn't stop there. Obviously, if we're going to give you, which this equates to a 12 times annual payment, now we're going to hope that we can recoup some of that money, or all of it, a lot sooner than waiting to catch up, just collecting checks over time until 10 years down the road we finally catch up with the payment that we gave you. So how do we do that? You try to either renegotiate the lease ahead of time. They both expire within 15 years. A lot of the tower companies will like to renegotiate those leases early, and that's what we do. So we were trying to get the fair market value for the leases when they come due, and then split it with you. In your favor, 60-40, okay? Secondly, if we're able to capture a new tenant, especially at the Civic Center site, where there's a great opportunity, because the way I understand it, and it pretty much is your tower that's a modified light pole, Verizon doesn't own anything there aside from their building outside of it, okay? So if we got a company like T-Mobile who is installing in this area to jump on that pole, the pole would probably have to be modified slightly, probably another 20 feet higher. That's a whole nother story if that can even happen, I'm sure of it. But and we're able to get a new ground lease for about $1,500, and you're going to get 60% of that. So the idea here is it's a cash option now, but it's a future partnership that we want to grow. We want to experience that with you and make it good for everybody.
Questions, anyone? So if I can do a summary, quick summary, we either try and continue to get our little bits of lease money as we go along, or we capture a lump sum at this point to do projects or anything we want to do at Parks and Rec. Now, Brian, if we say we don't want to do anything for the next 5 years, do those assets depreciate?
Sometimes. Who knows if we'll be doing it in 5 years? I mean, Granted, I just told you I've been here for 11 doing it. I didn't think we'd go past 2. When I first got the job, I thought, well, this sounds like a kind of a pyramid scheme thing. And, of course, my mother was like, I don't think you should do that. And here I am. But, the thing is anything can happen. I mean, 5 years from now, one of the sites could be obsolete for some reason, But yes, for the most part, I would think that it would stay around the same. Okay. But really, these lump sums are based on how we borrow money. They're based on the interest rates that we can get to borrow large sums of money. And had you looked at this 5 years ago, the purchase price would have been probably 4 to 5 years lower. And we were still doing business buying leases at 8 times annual. So right now, because the money is cheap, the offers are higher.
So that's something we have to think about, too.
That's something you think about, yeah.
This has an acceptance date of November 30th, 2015. Is it still a current dollar amount in the contract?
Yeah, that's all current. You know, those can be updated. I had sent over the other one for the American Tower site at the park, and that one has a more current expiration date, but obviously we know when we deal with the municipality that this has to go through a voting process and so on and so forth, so expiration dates kind of go out the window.
This is the one at the Civic Center?
There's two here.
Yeah.
So the Civic Center one is the Verizon, and that's the one that's $847 for monthly rent, and then the park has the American Tower site for $770. Those are your monthly figures anyway.
But both are at the Civic Center?
No,
One's at Twin Lakes.
Twin Lakes Park, yep.
So looking at the Verizon one, it says $121,968. That's for how long a period?
That's for 40 years.
Same with the other one?
Yeah, they're both 40-year deals. That's structured that way because...
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, we've found over the last 13 years that municipalities do not like to do agreements longer than 40 years typically. Some will do 50, but our typical deal is a perpetual deal. And we offer the most amount of money for a deal like that. I didn't write it this way because I've had a bad experience trying to write it more than 40 years. And but the prices go up accordingly if we do get more than 40 years.
There's a couple of different pieces of paper, and one of them, terms of agreement, lists 50 years. Is that just an outdated?
Which one is that, Tom?
I can hold it up for you. I don't know how else to identify it. They all look the same. It's the one with some shading on it.
Okay, either way.
Purchase price.
Either way, they're 40-year deals.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's on the second one, the
Okay.
$110,000 one.
Right.
The easement term says 50 years.
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
But we're talking about,
We're talking about a 40-year
so if you
deal.
do the math on this, just the Unison one, the second one, and it's a 40-year deal at the current rent, and this isn't putting into play the percentage, we got $369,600. And this is a lump sum of $110,880. Assuming the other one is larger because it was a larger amount per month. They just haven't done the math.
Correct.
406,560.
And once you would do the payoff, that is it? Or there is still the partnership of the 50/50?
Yeah, let me go back into that for a second, if I may. Your partnership's going to happen anytime we see another dollar of
Right,
rent.
regardless if it's a monthly
Regardless of
lease or
how
a
it
lump sum.
happens.
Okay.
So, you know, if, for example, the Twin Lakes is 770, and in 7 years, American Tower comes to us and they say, we want to up the lease another 25 years, and we say, okay, but we know, and you know, 770 is not the current market rate for rent on a cell tower. So make it, we'll just use round numbers, make it $2,000. Now you're getting 60% of that extra $1,300. So.
Christine?
Ryan, has Mr. Cooney or Mr. Forsythe weighed in on any of this paperwork?
Chris Forsythe has looked at it, and he leans more away from it. But I don't know, I figured, you know, with our properties, I figured it's something that's still worth discussing, you know, on a
You know,
board level.
I have no
is-
problem, coming to some type of an agreement with you. But I'm not going to do it until I ask our civil counsel to weigh in on it.
And he has our actual, so we're buying an easement here, okay? We're buying the easement that's already in the back of the lease in the legal description.
Yeah.
He's read our easement agreement, which is the legal document that he wanted to see, and I sent that to him ahead of time.
And I believe you.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that.
Oh, yeah.
But I would like.
Sure.
I would like him here because
Absolutely.
I truly, I don't like to execute agreements unless
No,
I'm.
no, and I don't expect you to.
All right.
I don't.
Thank you.
David.
You know.
I'll weigh in. I'm out of my comfort zone a little bit with this. But to me, it kind of almost, maybe this is a bad analogy or comparison, but I think of a reverse mortgage.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, our city's not going to go anywhere. I mean, the population's only growing. As I see it, the asset, the likelihood of it diminishing over time is pretty minimal. So I'm trying to think of what's the benefit to the taxpayers and whatnot. And the only one, again, I don't want to sell my soul for an immediate kind of situation here. There's got to be a pretty compelling reason. And the only thing in my mind I could think of would be they would be in a better position to actively sell or market the property and get income that we would split than what we would be able to do. And I don't know that that's the case. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But those are my two thoughts.
I think that's the summary, is right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's, do we want the money now,
Yeah.
up front, to do projects, or we continue to take the $700 a month as we go on? Andy, and then
There's a couple of things that I look at this and I go, we're going to get 100 on the second one for the American Tower. We're going to get $110,880. We're leaving about $258,720 if our lease continues at the current rate on the table. Problem is, I used to sell pagers. Who's got one now? So we have the opportunity to lose $369,600 if tomorrow they got a different way of getting that signal to our cell phones.
That's part of it.
But how much risk do we, as a board, want to take? How much money are we willing to leave on the table in the hopes that the cell phones still work the same way they do?
Well, I don't think we're going to be leaving a whole lot of, I don't think there's a whole lot of risk asking our civil counsel to weigh in on
No, I'm
this.
not, I'm not
Okay.
even interested in
I
doing
mean-
this tonight.
No.
There's too
All right.
much.
Thank
But that's
you.
the thing that we got to be thinking about is,
Right.
yeah, that's what we need to
the
do.
cell phone towers may be obsolete next month. I doubt it.
Hopefully not,
It
Brian,
could
right?
it could be 3-4 years from now where we're using satellites instead, or they've got smaller systems that they're using where you don't need the big towers.
I understand what you're saying,
But
and
it's
I,
$258,000 over 40 years. That's a
it is, and
sizable-
and you know what? I never really get into the whole risk picture, but it is part of what you look at, the bigger risk picture, and I've been doing this long enough to sit at council meetings and offer the same thing, only to find 2-3 years down the road, those sites are gone. I mean, two that stick out are Reed City down the street and South Haven. They both had AT&T sites, and they're both gone, and we offer on both of those sites. It's not a bigger part of my presentation because I don't like to do the fear factor thing. I like to rather just say, here's your opportunity. You want to do it based on this, But yes, it could be gone. Probably not.
I would see a civic
But it could
center being around for a while since it's in the center. Twin Lakes, they may find another way to handle that.
Right.
But if we execute a monthly agreement with you for 40 years, isn't there some obligation whether the asset remains or not?
No.
I'm looking for the escape clause, so you'll have to excuse me.
There's an escape
Scrolling
clause
over
in
this.
the current agreement. Yes.
There is?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Both of them.
Pete Elbers.
Yes, I think I just heard the answer to one of my questions,
Sure.
which was, we currently have an easement agreement with these two entities, Verizon Wireless
Correct.
and American Tower. And my first thought was, okay, if we choose to do this, how do we get out of those agreements? And someone just mentioned there's an escape clause. What does that escape clause say?
Okay, we're talking about two different things here, Pete. One, The current agreements have what's called an out clause, meaning that if they find the site to be not suitable for whatever reason, they don't need it for technology reasons, they don't need it for whatever reason, they can cancel their lease agreement, remove their equipment, and leave. Our easement agreement is not anything different than what they have. All it is essentially if they have this little footprint where the tower is, and they've got an easement, 24/7 access, we just slip ours over top of it. It's the same thing. We just become the landlord in fact, based on that legal instrument. So
if I understand what you're saying, this agreement as proposed would simply be changing the ownership of that original lease that we currently have, or easement.
you'd be assigning the lease.
In other words, for Verizon Wireless, you would then become us.
Correct.
And is that permissible under their agreement?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things your attorney looked at. He wondered if you could legally assign the agreements, and I think that he found that you can. Our attorneys, obviously, they've looked them over and said, yes, they're assignable.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to get a definitive agreement with our attorney on that one. The other question I had, we're dealing with two different towers, two different locations. As the lease holder, does your company ever get involved in modifying the structure for your own benefit? Or just in the case of you would negotiate with maybe another IT company who might want to put another little antenna up there and they do the modification? Are there any limitations on how much modification could be done out there so it doesn't look like a Christmas tree?
Sure. We can write that into the final agreement. You know, we can put the limitations in there. And the first part of your question is, no, we don't physically do that. We would be hiring out a firm to do that, or our new tenant would hire a construction firm to do that work.
Do we have any say in what ornaments we would tolerate on those towers?
You could put a restriction on it, or you can put a aesthetics clause in the agreement saying, you know, not to exceed a certain height, not to exceed a certain antenna amount on the antenna halo. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I talked to Ryan about, is that our agreement that I sent to the attorney, none of it is in stone. And we work with municipalities, work with nonprofits. Everybody's got a different way and a different specific situation that they need these agreements to be catered towards, and we can do that. That agreement is our pro forma agreement that can be modified.
Okay, the third question I had, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but obviously your company is in the business of making a profit.
Sure.
How successful have these lease renegotiations been? Have they been successful, or have they on occasion been spectacular failures?
I'm sure of a little bit of both, you know, but I don't think I would be standing here with a job if they weren't successful. Because, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, simply buying 12 times annual only to pay ourselves back over time collecting these checks, it's not a good business model. We have to either modify these lease agreements or find new ground leases to add to these things to make up for what we've given you in the lump sum form. So, yeah, I think the number, last I checked, was $5 million in annualized added revenue that we've added to the entire portfolio. So.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other, Lisa?
Well, I'll echo Christine's comments. You know, obviously we want to discuss this with Chris Forsythe. He's a great moral compass. So do I have to talk into this?
Yep.
I was trying to read contracts. But, you know, our experience with Christine and I have quite an extensive experience with him, and he does an excellent job at analyzing the legal aspects of contracts, but he's not really an advisor in that way. And even though she's sitting here, I would still be saying this, we have an expert in finance and budgets and all kinds of great things. And I would like to have Jen take a look at this and analyze it from a different aspect than Chris would do with legal. I would have your opinion on the economic part of this. And then our board could have a memo from both Chris Forsyth and Jen that could give us some advice on both ends. First of all, dotting all of our Ts on the legal stuff. But as Chris will tell you over and over again, he's not here to advise us on how to vote, and Jen can. And already in just a month, her memos have been spectacular for the board and helped us clarify things. So I would like to make. Yeah, I'm sorry. I would have said it if you weren't here. So don't feel like just if you show up, we're going to give you a job. But you're welcome to come up, I think, if you want.
You'll get more
You
if you
can't
don't
say
show
no,
up.
though, because I happen to also be a county commissioner.
Absolutely, and I'd be happy to look at this from a policy level perspective.
That's what I'm
too, to,
interested in.
Provide a recommendation to you
Yeah.
as you consider it. So I appreciate the request, actually, and I'm happy to look at it.
That'd be great. Jen has been an incredible help to our board already, and I think you'll find her to be a great resource here as well. I would like to make a motion to turn these agreement contracts over to both our deputy administrator and our deputy prosecutor to issue memos to the board prior to next month's meeting, if they're able to, and then we can have a little bit better background to discuss things, I think, and know where we're coming from, and then we'll have, I think, all of our avenues maybe looked at. Because I'm obviously, I'm along with all the rest of you, I'm not comfortable with deciding anything
Support.
along these lines yet. So,
Thank you, Andy.
yeah, let's do this.
Any discussion? We got a first and a second there. Any discussion? I'll discuss it. I think it's a good idea. Yeah, let's do that. And
Can I ask one more question? Ryan, why have you recommended this? Essentially, the amount of cash we get is a 12-year payout. And so what's the benefit that we would have recouped that money in 12 years? So we're giving up 28 years of lease. Is the county, is the management a burden for the Park Commission, or is it just, are we gaining something beyond, because we're giving up a lot of money, no matter how you slice it. And what we haven't heard, what are the benefits that we get beyond money, because money-wise, it doesn't look very good.
Well, this is how I looked at it. We're, in our Parks and Rec department, and in the county, we're kind of going through this budget crisis and kind of sorting some things out. Our facilities, in the long run, are going to need a lot of maintenance pretty soon. And we don't really have much to work with. So I was thinking, if this was a good deal and it worked out, we'd be able to invest some of that money that we get from the cell towers to maintain our buildings, to have them last a little longer.
So spend the money, you mean?
Yeah, essentially kind of preserve, it would kind of preserve Parks and Rec to a degree to continue operations and, hopefully make more money down the line.
How would they make money? How would us spending money make money?
Because if we preserve our buildings, we'd be able to continue renting them out.
You change the oil, you don't change the engine.
Okay.
One thing, too, that you might not know that's unique is the Parks and Rec Commission is governed under a separate statute from our other boards and commissions in the county, and we enter into real estate contracts, buy and sell property.
Right.
So one unique thing is if we do something like this, the money retains in the Parks Fund rather than just going back to the general fund as it would with another board. So I think there's a perception, perhaps, that this is money, it would be earmarked for parks, and it couldn't be taken away in a budget crisis.
Well, yes, it could.
Well, Christine would take it away. But I think the Parks Board would spend it before December 31st.
But the lease money can't be taken away either, correct? Am I misunderstanding it?
No, you are correct, because it's a contract with the Parks and Recreation Commission. That's
Right.
what's unique about this
So
group.
it's not a question, it's just a question of money today versus
Absolutely.
money over a long
Absolutely.
term.
And I'm not advocating either. I
Right.
just, since you're here on your first time, just, we've had to always remind ourselves of that legal aspect of this board, because it is unique versus other ones that we enter into the contracts and buy and sell real estate.
And that is the way to look at it. Do we want to?
And we've got Jen who's going to look it over
She's
really
an
well
expert
for
at
us
this stuff.
and give us a great input and
And Ryan's right, we got aging facilities. We had a lot of negative press last year.
And I'm sure they're going to communicate to see what we need.
New
and
playgrounds.
why we're looking at it.
So anyways, okay, I'm done with discussion. Anybody else want to discuss anything? All those in favor to Lisa's motion, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
We'll get back with you. Yep. All right, action on the consent calendar. Ryan, will you give us the goodies on that, please?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for a full discussion. Such requests will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file. I think these are misnumbered, but as it's on the agenda. Item 4, Parks and Recreation Commission minutes of January 21st, 2016 meeting. Item 5, approved Business Development Team Civic Center minutes of November 18th, 2015 meeting. Item 6, Grand Traverse Conservation District monthly report. Item 7, Parks and Recreation Commission monthly budget report. Item 8, list of 2015 Senior Center Network programs.
All right, does anybody from the audience want to pull anything out of the consent calendar? Seeing none, anybody on the board like to pull one? Mr. Albers, sir.
Yes, I'd like to pull number 8.
8.
The list of 2015 Senior Center Network programs.
Okay. Any other commissioners want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the consent calendar?
I move we accept the consent calendar as presented with the exception of agenda item number 8.
Support.
Okay.
Tried to get
I don't know who got it first. Christine, I think. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. All right. Items removed from the consent calendar, it's number 8. Pete Albers, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, this is just information for my benefit, or maybe for some other commissioners too. Lori, I was very impressed with this list. In fact, I was kind of mind-boggling when I read through it. And I know you can't do this all by yourself. Could you just explain to us how you manage all of these programs all over the county? Is it just with volunteers, or how is this set up? How do you organize something like this? I would like to know.
I would gladly like to tell you. We have an amazing team of staff. We have program coordinator CC Hovey, who is responsible for the Traverse City programs, and we have Leslie Sneller, who is responsible for our outreach locations. They're both full-time staff. We have a full-time office specialist that kind of is like a business manager, runs the office for us, and we have a full-time clerk, receptionist, that works out at the front desk handling the traffic flow and greeting people. That is the heart of our staff that comes up with the ideas, surveys the seniors to figure out what they want, what they're looking for, gathering resources to make them happen, scheduling, that kind of thing. And then it's volunteers that pretty much facilitate most of those programs. Most every program that we offer has a volunteer attached to it in some fashion. Whether they're teaching the class, facilitating discussion, serving the meals, doing the dishes, whatever, but over 100 volunteers that are attached to all those programs.
Would it be possible to get some some variation of just a summary diagram showing your staff and how they link to certain volunteer groups and just I'm not thinking of every single program linked to a given volunteer, but just some general
Well, I have,
idea.
like our volunteer report that I can generate from the same program that generates the program list. The volunteers are sorted by the activity that they work in. So like it would say classes and how many hours the volunteers manage those classes. Is that kind of what you want, or do you want the names of the volunteers?
Oh, no,
or-
I'm not interested in that. I was just curious because you mentioned you've got a permanent staff. The staff have certain responsibilities.
Right.
And then they work with presumably groups of volunteers in certain categories. Someone may have educational programs of a certain type, somebody else may have travel programs, somebody else has exercise programs, somebody works with the libraries in the county, and other people work here at the senior center. And I have no idea how
Well, pretty much the
intricate
program
this
coordinators manage all of the volunteers and myself. So between myself and the two program coordinators, most of the volunteers report to one or a combination of one of the three of us. So it's the three of us that pretty much manage the volunteers. Is that what you mean? or-
Yeah, sort of. I'm just trying to envision, how all of this works, because you've got hundreds and hundreds of programs, and I
You can come hang out with us.
Some are very repetitive. Obviously, you've got 200 instances of something, but
Right.
others are just one-time events.
Right.
And some of these are going to take a fair amount of organization, and I didn't know whether you had permanent staff who would work with volunteers on every one of those, or just the volunteer would handle it, and or how you did it.
Volunteers never work in isolation. I mean, they're there because we've recruited them, we train them, we do things for them to keep them, provide them with the resources they need to execute their program. But, all of those programs listed are considered senior center programs, so we are responsible for initiating them and maintaining them and
Okay.
coming up with volunteers to run them. If a volunteer can't make it, it's staff that steps in, or we have backup volunteers prepared to step in. But a huge part of our job every day is maintaining those volunteers, giving them the support that they need to keep doing what they need, giving them the love and attention that they need to feel good about what they're doing, and making sure that they have the resources they need to do.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I have a better feel for it now, and it's very commendable. I mean, there's
Thank
a
you.
lot of stuff going on there. I'm really quite impressed.
There is a lot of stuff going on. And we
okay.
keep doing more, because that's what we want to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Merrick.
One of the things that'd be interesting for me to see, and maybe to understand how what you guys do for the community, is see, you've got a number of events that have happened, but if you've got 3 events and one person comes to each one, it's not as impressive as I know at Interlochen, that room is packed every Thursday. The seniors love it.
Yes, they
But
do.
I see you do, it might say there's 4 events there. That might be 400 seniors at each event. I mean, I know there's a lot, I don't know the numbers anymore, it's been a couple years since I've gone.
Right, yeah, the
But it-
report you have is just the program occurrences, it's
Yep.
not attendance.
It'd be nice if we could see how many of our citizens are being serviced by this, because this is a completely different realm than what I'm used to doing, and it's new to Parks and Rec.
Right.
So, just to help us get accustomed to what's going on, so that when people talk to us, we can say, well, we're affecting 20% of the community, is
Sure.
taking advantage of the programs that we have.
Yeah, this wonderful software that we have, I can generate just about any report that you want, so I can easily
And then volunteer
pull
hours would
that
be
up.
another great thing. We
Yeah.
got about 40 hours a month or 40 hours a week of volunteer hours helping do this.
Yep.
That shows that there's community support above and beyond just monetary donations.
Exactly.
People giving their time is a lot more valuable than some folks writing a check.
I think so. Yeah, they say, we'll be focusing on that and giving you some detailed reports in April, because it is National Volunteer Month in April, so we'll be focusing on
Perfect.
just how many
Good.
people. But I'll be glad to give that to you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Yeah, are these programs or just events?
What
These
do you
aren't
define as the
programs.
difference?
Well, you have a fire drill listed on here. Was that a fire prevention program?
No,
Or does mean you
that
had
would
a
have been
fire
an
drill?
actual fire drill, so people participated in the fire drill.
Okay, so this is just a list of events, not necessarily hosted programs.
It's
they're being-
everything.
Right, it's everything that happened in the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The only thing that's not on there, I don't think, are rentals. So if the building's used for something that's not a senior center
Well, there's a
event-
wedding listed in here.
Is it?
that
Okay,
not
then
a
those are
rental?
included. I wasn't sure if, I don't have it in front of me, so I wasn't sure if we included that or not.
Okay, I know, I think there's
So, yeah.
rentals on here too.
Okay, then yes,
It's
it's
pretty much
everything.
anything that happened on any day.
Yep,
Okay,
we count it. If
And
they
it-
walk through the door, we count it.
right, okay.
At 7,684 events. That's pretty good.
Well, that's occurrences.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
current.
It's occurrences, but it's,
It's about 400 individual programs or activities.
gotcha.
That's a little more.
It kind of freaked me out when I ran the report.
Anybody else? Commissioner Max Bauer.
I would move to receive and file the list of 2015 Senior Center Network programs.
I support that.
Support it. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you. All right, department report. I think it's going to be kind of light tonight. Our illustrious leader is not feeling well at all, so she's home resting and getting better. So, Ryan, you want to add anything that you have?
Yeah, she gave me some notes to
Oh,
go
okay.
over.
Good, yeah.
She wanted me to go over the current projected revenue that we've brought in so far through our Twin Lakes facility. We are currently sitting at $51,625.
Wow, nice.
And then for Power Island, we are at $4,635. So that's 42 reservations at Twin Lakes and 28 at Power Island and 6 pending at Power Island.
What are we taking, are we doing all 10, or what are we taking reservations for at Power Island? Did we get the go-ahead from the DEQ, even though we haven't had the final?
Yep, they're tentatively reserved.
Okay, so people are reserving the new spots then? Great, okay.
Nice.
All right.
Go ahead, Ryan.
As far as the pool, the YMCA currently has 131 Y memberships. We will receive data about the memberships that Commissioner McIntyre inquired about last month on how often it's used at which location.
Right.
We're expecting to have those numbers in March. And then we have the Civic Center BDT meeting. I'm not sure, did you want me to cover that, or did you?
I'll do it.
Okay.
A little bit, I'll let you do a little input, and I'll make it within a couple minutes here. We met yesterday, there was a couple people missing, and, but we had a quorum. We were lucky to have Cherry Wolf, a Deputy Director of Finance, present. She answered many questions, had suggestions about funding, donations, private groups. We discussed a couple of items without going into detail, because you're going to see them. We're going to put them on the agendas coming up, or merely for discussion at those times. We need to pick a structure type very soon. Kiwanis Club, they may, everything's in the we may stage. Kiwanis Club may offer to support us with a certain type of playground. Carter's Kids may offer to support us with a different type of playground. A and B. I should say A and Z. And neither would support us until all of our homework is done. In other words, we do everything that's complete. And then they'll decide if they want to help. So with that being said, I'm going to, we're also on somewhat of a 5-week deadline, and I'm going to turn that part of it over to you.
As far as the 5-week deadline?
Right.
So essentially, I got this crowdfunding, but it's really crowd granting campaign that we're trying to use to raise funds for the playground. So essentially, the community will contribute to this campaign and hopefully raise $50,000, and in return, we will receive a $50,000 grant. And that will give us that $100,000 to add to our $52,000. This is something that we did run through Chris Forsyth, and he gave us the thumbs up on to run with it. And then pretty much what we're waiting on to actually launch this campaign is, the actual playground model. Because people aren't going to throw money at it unless they know what they're getting. And that's a requirement that the project manager from the site has told me, so we're just kind of playing the waiting game until we can get some designs and figure that out. Is there anything else with the 5 weeks I'm missing?
Well, we're just we have so much time to tighten things up because of the timeline. And,
We've got the public hearing component of it, too.
yes, we have it all detailed as to Christine, before she had to leave to go to another meeting, actually, and, but we have a list, I think, A through G, of the proper orders. Cherry Wolf actually had a lot of input on that.
Right.
She was very, very
She's
helpful.
good.
I think that's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you have choice A and Z?
Or something in between.
Yeah, or somebody, yeah. So I know what had been discussed before about having community input to some extent in that design selection, but it sounds like there's this fork in a road that's going to probably have to happen sooner than later, and I'm kind of wondering when that is and what part, if any, the community plays at that particular juncture.
That's the public hearing component.
Okay,
that I
that's
brought up.
kind of one.
I think what we were going to do was, rather than start from scratch with the public hearing, which is kind of how Kids Cove, the original
yeah.
Kids Cove was done, we're going to offer up several suggestions and then let the public pick their favorite.
And A and Z will be in the,
Exactly.
Right.
And we'll make sure that whatever the suggestions are compliant with the potential project managers that we would use, or else there's really no sense in it. But I think we have an idea of what we're interested in. I mean, my biggest component is just the handicapped accessibility is critical, I think. But Carter's Kids is different than working with the other funders. So I think what we'll do is maybe, because I was absent, still out of town, and then, of course, Kevin
He was.
was out of town as well. So because of that, maybe we'll call a BDT meeting before this deadline comes up so we can hash this out and make sure that our Parks Board can get involved and we can start this ball rolling sooner rather than later.
I
Go ahead.
maybe can help you a little further. One thing also is the state is involved in, different aspects of it, and handicap was discussed a lot. And of course, we've discussed that among ourselves, and, there will be an area for handicap, as probably we have to, per state. Also, the difference in the structures, we're looking for two things, safety and longevity of the equipment. And as much as I could tell from discussions yesterday, something might have 2 bolts and something might have 3. That's why Kiwanis might want this and somebody else might want that, without going into
Yep.
it further.
I know that Carter's Kids, they have a preferred vendor that they're
I think they work
comfortable with.
exclusively with
Yeah.
one, don't they?
It's not a design issue, it's just a vendor issue for them.
I just didn't name names
Yep,
because.
yep, I agree.
The Kiwanis also have a preferred vendor.
Right.
Yep, I think that's
But
the
the question
case,
would be
yes.
the potential funding
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
the 2 project managers as well.
Yep.
But I think, Dave, rather than starting from scratch with the public this time, we'll have a narrowed list of what's acceptable and then have the community pick what they prefer. And also, obviously, the opportunity to offer extra suggestions. And I think all of us view this project, at least on the BDT, as just the first part of this. It's a big piece of property and there's lots of future potential. So getting input from the community will always be helpful, Or somebody maybe magically arrive with $1 million check too.
I got a pen if you need it, Dave.
Brian, how much do we already have?
For funding, we're at 52,000.
I'm curious, so you clearly have more knowledge about the 2 different vendors they would go with, depending on Kiwanis or whatnot. And I guess it was loud and clear, the community wants something creative, and I have a feeling what we're going to get, and maybe I'm wrong, is just by the nature of they're working with the vendors that they're working with, but I have a feeling what it's going to be is kind of like pulling things off of a shelf that make this larger structure, and maybe the creative component is what parts you pull off the shelf that make the larger thing, unless I'm mistaken.
That's where the public gets involved.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's like, is there a climbing wall here versus our bendy slide that goes over here, and they give you a catalog and you kind of pick what the components are.
Well, some of the problems, though, with Kids Cove originally, I mean, as wonderful as the concept, and obviously the final stage was, I mean, I talked to Tim Schreiner, our former Parks Director, former Parks Director, and he told me of, you know, just a 3-hour meeting to decide what color the dinosaur's eyes were going to be. I mean, we're just not at that stage here. We want to replace this structure and give the community a play structure, but we want to have the public hearing component. But yeah, will it be as detailed as the Kids Cove plan was? I can't imagine it would be. I really don't. We don't have 3 years to devote to this and that kind of project. But I think what we do have is the start of something, and a public hearing way before we commit to anything, and we're able to hear loud and clear. And if the community comes forward and says, we hate all of this, then maybe now's not the time to build a playground at our civic center.
So at this meeting, would you see, just so I understand what would take place there, would you see several designs through, maybe 3 for each of the 2 vendors, or whatever the number is, with a variety of components, and then the community would weigh in, and maybe there would be one kind of clear favorite, and then from there, it might be subtly tweaked or something as it went forward, if everything lined up? Is that kind of what
Well, I think also just random comments would be heard too.
Sure, that could change or
Maybe
modify.
90% of the people there say, we don't want a play structure, we want a splash pad at the civic center. So, I don't know, but otherwise, no news is good news, I suppose. I mean, I know Ryan will do a good job of marketing the hearing and getting people out, and at that point, if they want to be heard, they can be heard, and if not, I think it's up to the commission, because ultimately it is up to the commission on this, because it is funding raised by Grand Traverse County.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
With these vendors too, they're basing their design off of the data that we collected through the initial survey. So we're handing the data to them, and we're asking them to come up with a few designs that we could bring to this public hearing. So the community involvement is already in that project already, and then we're going to get more community involvement by kind of picking and choosing the design, and then, if they decide which one they want, they could, tell us where they want changes. Like, they might want a slide on the other side of the playground, and they can tweak it and move it around.
What's the community involvement component that you would be giving them? I'm thinking back to the event that I attended at the Civic Center a number of years ago, where they were just talking in generic terms of programming and things like that. Was there something more specific?
We just had a survey like a month ago, 2 months ago. The
Okay.
Ticker put it out, and we had it on our website and
Yeah.
Facebook.
Okay, now I'm
and-
remembering.
yeah.
Okay.
So long ago.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what month it was. It
Yeah.
seems like it wasn't
Kinda
very long
focus day
ago.
by day here. Okay.
Somewhere in the last.
Let's just go with that.
Brian, any more wonderful news from the director's office?
The program ad hoc.
Yeah. So I'll, if I miss anything, fill in the gaps here. So basically, we met, and we were trying to kind of grasp or get a handle on really what the scope of our focus would be, and kind of summarize what we ended up with is we decided, at least here initially, to focus on what would be the southwest corner of the Civic Center, where we have a very underutilized cement pad / pavilion. Is it correct to call that a pavilion?
I think it's called an amphitheater.
Amphitheater?
But I think
Yeah,
it's
it's called an
missing the shell
amphitheater.
Yeah,
part.
It's not one.
So it's like a
Amphitheater,
cement
yeah,
stage.
okay.
It's a cement stage.
There you go. So,
A big cement.
So we talked about a lot of objectives and how we can kind of parallel all the wonderful things we want to do, such as basically providing recreational opportunities for everybody of every age. And we saw that location as an opportunity if there was some type of programming where we could have this kind of intergenerational mix of people and shine the spotlight again on an underutilized area. So the way that it was left, and Ryan will have to speak about this because he's done way more work, would be to pick a handful of dates in the summertime, whatever the number is, maybe it's 5 different dates, and try to structure some kind of like cultural mashup of different kinds of, who knows, maybe it's a barbershop quartet and some poetry reading and a Shakespeare thing, and offer up the venue probably for free, but maybe possibly, if it worked with the contract, have some vendors there with food. And I mean, we even talked about renting out lawn chairs, but make kind of like an event where the community would come together and it wouldn't cost us money, and the people that would participate would get an audience that would perform, if you would get an audience that they might not have in another location. Am I missing anything? Or you had a lot more, you probably followed up on a lot of that more.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was to kind of increase the activity of that area, to kind of, you know, make it positive again, because it's a dark area of the park. You know, people don't like going over there. You know, we have our yearly residents that hang out there, and this would be kind of some activities that would kind of bring people there, kind of clean it up, and hopefully make it more marketable for running out the pavilion and stuff like that. The ideas were to explore maybe musicians playing from the amphitheater, plays was mentioned.
I contacted Jeff Cobb with the Summer Children's. I mean, so I think we were just kind of kicking around ideas.
That's my cousin.
Yeah.
No way.
And I've been exploring different ways how we could do this, where we could also bring some sort of revenue out of it. And I'm still kind of researching different ways to do that, because we're not going to be able to bring in food trucks or anything like that because of our Pizza Wagon contract.
So you did verify that then? Did you get a chance to check into that? Because that was one of the questions.
We would have to work with Zidra with coming up with an agreement of some sort, because she has that exclusivity for the Civic Center.
So it's not just the building, it's the whole entire property, even over there. Okay.
Yeah.
That happens to be under old business. Weird.
Yeah, it's not like she could do a mobile food thing there, so I wouldn't think it would be competitive, but.
Well, I look at old business and see that contract's up for renewal.
I think it's an evergreen, right? So if we don't do anything, then it renews, is that what we did?
I think so.
Yeah.
Did you talk about, you would remember, I know not everybody was on the board, but it seems like it was a while ago. Do you remember that group that did like bike-in movies? Remember we had to approve fire because at that time the board rules made the board approve any open fire, and they wanted to put fire in like metal, burn barrels for heat for it?
I know what you're speaking
Do
of.
you remember that? I can't remember how long ago it was. Many, many years ago. And they brought people would bike in. It's that group in town that does bike stuff. And they had a movie at the Civic Center, and they had the burn barrels for heat, because I think it was like September or something like that.
We had a big deal about striking the match.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It turned into a big deal.
It was a big deal, yes.
And,
No way.
but that seems tailor-made for it over there at the amphitheater area to
Right.
put up a screen, or I don't know.
This would be something that'd be interesting this year to provide it on a first-come, first-served basis to different groups, to see if they can make a go of it, and then write up contracts next year where we lease the area out. That way we know if it's a viable option or not. We give our potential partners an opportunity to see, will this work? Can we get people to come? Maybe we want to have every Friday we want a different group there. The first Friday is this type, the second Friday, so we got different opportunities. And it could generate some revenue for us, or at least get our parks utilized.
And I still think that food vendors important.
Offer it for weddings, it'll be booked every week.
I'm just going to hop in here. Lori, are you looking at that area?
I was at that
For
discussion.
some artsy stuff too?
I was part of the conversation. We talked about
Some
all the
art.
stuff that you're mentioning. We mentioned the movies and stuff. We mentioned things, but I think we were just trying to
Maybe some art.
narrow it down to something manageable for this year, and the result was what David had.
We really felt that, number one, I mean, maybe down the road, it's something that could be rented out, but you really got to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an underutilized area that doesn't look all that pretty right now, and it's competing, frankly, with a lot of great events all around the community, so I don't even see next year. I mean, I would be thrilled if we could have 4 strongly, solidly attended 3-hour events that at the end of the season, people were like, that was awesome. I mean, I think that would be a huge accomplishment if we could pull that off, so.
And then a promoter would be, hey, Grand Traverse County Parks and Rec, I'd like to, what can we do?
Yeah.
We need to talk about the food vending contract, and
Yep.
we need to talk about Tom. I mean, you know, it's kind of like the elephant in the room, but it's hard to market an area. You know,
Poor Tom just shows
we
up
have
and
a
already got
problem
talking
with you,
about it.
Tom. No, we can talk about marketing all we want, but until we discuss that elephant in the room.
We have a homeless person who...
Tom lives there.
Yes.
He's not a problem, you know. It's a public park, and during park hours, it's a public park.
The only way to correct that is to put hours on the park. And
There are hours on the park.
Do we have hours on at the Civic Center?
Enforce it, yes.
We do, but he's there during the day when we would be having events, and I know it really has been a problem for renting out that pavilion.
Yes.
And it just is something that I think I mean, I love what you guys did in talking about utilizing that area. You're spot on. We did the same thing in our business development team. We divided the park in quadrants, and that was the quadrant we wanted to revitalize. But we really need to find out the legalities of that and what we can do and how to do it appropriately. And because I just don't think it's easy to market a pavilion and stuff when you have somebody living there. You know, it's a unique situation.
It is very unique.
And I don't know we can't ask him to leave in the park hours.
we can.
He's a
every right to be
Just for record,
He has every right
we've tried.
to be there. Yeah.
We
He
tried
has
that.
every right to be there during park hours. He's a citizen of Grand Traverse County.
Yes.
But he's living there.
His address
which
just
means-
has to be the
We
Civic
have
Center.
every right to ask him to leave,
At the end
not
of the
in park
day.
hours. But if somebody can be there for a bike and movie, Tom can be there to sit at the picnic table at the pavilion. Granted, he's got bags full of stuff with him, but
You can't
that's,
distinguish that.
No, you can't
Yeah.
during the day, but you can break the there are ways to break that pattern if you have stuff.
well, I know you
for it.
guys dealt with this at the library. I'm
All the
aware of
time.
your history
Senior Center has
there.
a problem with it, too.
Yeah.
We do.
So it's just something to kind of keep in mind because we want to handle it appropriately and.
Right.
But, you know, we're putting a lot of time and effort into marketing something.
Well, but has anybody, I have a question if I may, has anybody talked to you, you mentioned, Ryan, that it's a dark corner.
Yeah, just in
All
general.
you need a chainsaw and you can solve that, and we could, I'm dead serious. You can thin trees.
Somebody will chain
yeah.
themselves
I was
to
No,
gonna
you
say,
can
it's not as
thin-
easy as it sounds.
I've been to events there.
So mean.
I've been to several events that use the concrete slab.
Yeah.
And one of the significant problems with events at the concrete slab is it's not the lack of a band shell, it's the fact that the audience viewing area has ceased to exist.
It's
Because
landscaping.
I got it, yeah.
No, there's a few trees
Landscaping.
here and there, and it needs,
I like
you-
landscaping
if you
part.
talk to somebody in the tree business, you need to get way up on the trees and thin them out so you get more light out of them. You probably would have to cut down a few, but it seems like when the adjective associated with it is dark, it's a very inexpensive solution to at least solve the dark part. And I think
Well,
that,
that
Ryan,
also
you're right.
refers to the lack of
dark
light,
is a
though.
big part of it.
It refers to joggers and walkers. In the winter, of course, when it gets, dark at 5:30. That particular bend that goes right real close to that house's fence behind the amphitheater, I don't believe has adequate lighting. Didn't we have some discussion on that?
There's lighting around the track.
I walk it
But
3 days a week.
it's just like in front of the amphitheater area where it's It's dark and.
It's off the trail. It's
Yeah.
in the woodsy area, and that's what I'm talking about.
And
I
I
think it'd be
think
something
there's,
great for Ryan to look at and come back with a
Ryan will
solution
get a
on
chainsaw.
how to get it corrected.
Husqvarna.
That's kind of my goal is to busy that area, get people using it more. The more traffic and use that area gets, because Tom doesn't hang out there when there's an event going on. He'll see the sign, he'll go somewhere else.
But he still leaves his bags there.
No, he moves on.
But I think if we do clean that up, like Tom had recommended, the improving the landscape by maybe allowing the canopy to be a little thinner and trimming some of the bushes up so that they're more aesthetically pleasing may make it more inviting for others to go enjoy the area versus just one individual.
Pete Elbers.
I would certainly second the whole landscaping review issue to make that a little more hospitable and maybe even enlarge the area a little bit around it. But before we go charging into this, that amphitheater itself needs some work. And we've talked about this before. It's got chunks of masonry falling out of one corner. The handrails look kind of god-awful. They're just pressure-treated wood sitting there. I don't know how old they are. The surface itself of the concrete doesn't have big holes in it or chips, but it should be resealed and cleaned up. And there's a shed behind it, which looks kind of ugly the way it is, but I don't know what's in it, but we really probably can't do anything about it. But we need some physical care of that place before we even try to schedule anything. And that's going to take a little bit of upfront effort and money.
Or volunteer work.
Did you ever
Or
find out
well,
about what's
volunteer,
in that
sure.
storage?
Yeah,
Do we want to
it's
know?
just like facilities
Something
uses.
we want to know, yeah.
It's nothing crazy. It's just like
It's just at parks.
Like
It's like the
bodies.
antique
Another
storage.
splash
I think it's
pad.
like
Yeah.
lawnmowers and like
It's facilities maintenance. Okay.
yeah, they have equipment in there.
We found a splash pad in one of the storage units. We found 2 docks. We found, what else did we find?
Boats,
Boats.
canoes.
I mean, in the
got
different
all kinds of
parks,
stuff,
in the
Tom.
storage
Or
stuff, people
had.
just,
We had.
but the splash pad is still in a box.
Yeah.
So there's a potential there to utilize it in another phase of the Kids Cove expansion, or it's not called Kids Cove, whatever we call our new playground. There's a potential.
Playground expansion.
Playground expansion.
There you go.
But sometimes we find good things, sometimes we find scary things in storage, so.
Mixed bag.
Right? I think if we have staff take a look at that, come back to recommendations, what they'd like to have us do, it may be a very inexpensive cleanup.
It does need to be looked at.
Or it may be a lot of money, we go, we don't want to touch that right now, we don't want to spend that kind of money.
Well, it's interesting because both of our ad hocs independently have confirmed that particular corner as the target for what to do.
But if it's a couple of
And then
grand,
our
that's
full
one
board
thing, if it's
certainly.
100 grand, that's another.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I think
You'd be
it's.
exactly right.
And I still want to talk about Tom because
It's all right.
we don't,
Put him on it.
we don't, I mean, it needs to be handled kindly.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important. The last thing we want is to look like we're throwing somebody out of our park. I mean, I think we all know he doesn't cause any problems.
None at
But I
all.
think we also realistically know that he does concern some people, or
Yes.
they shy away from that area.
Yes.
And I think it's just
Well,
something to,
You know, people that are not familiar with
Yeah.
him, that come into the park new, are probably more than the rest of us who see him, talk to him.
right. But that pavilion would certainly be the heart of something like what Dave was talking about with these different groups that you would bring in, so.
Ryan, anything else?
That was it.
Was it
I have a couple of things that I wanted to, when it's time. Chris wanted me to bring a couple things.
On,
Under the report, her report.
Oh, okay, sorry. Go ahead, Lori. Yep.
I'll make it quick because it's
Nope,
getting
that's
late.
all
Senior Center signed up 58 new members in January. We had 444 seniors participate in 1,400 units of service. Some special events that we've had going on right now, we have a rotating art collection going on in the Senior Center with Charlie Murphy's senior students. I encourage you to stop by and check out it, check their work out. They're really amazing. We have Matter of Balance classes going on throughout the county. We're partnering with MSU Extension and offering a cooking class out in Fife Lake. We've partnered with NMC and have part of their life extended classes going on out at our Acme location. Dominic Fortuna was in Kingsley and Interlaken with the Valentine's celebrations, and Joe Charlevoix came in and talked about the weather. We have coming up next month hearing screenings going on at each of the locations in outreach, and we have art classes starting up in Acme, Kingsley, and Interlaken, and we're starting to work on our community garden and our CSA Share program that's going to be going on in the spring. Today I participated in Munson's Community Health Assessment, which is very interesting and gave me some ideas of things we can look at in the future for the senior center. I'm also part of Beta's Citizen Advisory Group, which met this week as well. So I will be reaching out to departments in the county and seniors to get suggestions on transportation needs in the community, because there will be another meeting in 3 months to bring those thoughts to the table. We're partnering with Tattle, the library, on a spelling bee for the spring. And I met with Cordia staff this week as well to do a program in May called 90 over 90. And it'll be playing on the 40 under 40 program. And we're going to be looking at 90-year-olds. So we're kind of excited about that. We weren't sure if we'd find enough people, but we have just at the senior center 112 people that are in their 90s participating. Wow. So I don't think we're going to have any trouble finding 90 people. So I'm excited about that. Our income tax program is going very well. We've had over 100 people already get their taxes done. We're working with Lawton Gallagher to redo our public service announcement, because our old one has the Commission on Aging part of it, so we need to separate that. And something that we're exploring right now to focus on this year is the sandwich generation, which probably most of us are a part of, and we're going to start looking at some creative ways to reach out to the community to address some of those unique needs that we have in the sandwich generation. So that's kind of just a brief look at January for the senior centers.
Any questions? Pete?
Yeah, Laura, your first statement was you added 48 or 84 members?
58 new members in January.
58 new members to what, the senior center downtown, or?
Just in general, when you join the senior center, you join the whole network. We don't distinguish between which center they go to.
What's your total head count?
We have, well, there's lots of different ways to look at it, but we have almost 4,000 active members right now. We have almost 10,000 people in our database.
Okay.
And we have about 7,000 people that I consider active, because they're still like just getting the newsletter. Maybe they don't participate actively, but they've called us or they get the newsletter and they're kind of out there. So
10,000 people from this county?
Are in our database. In our database.
Out of about 89,000.
Right. Some of those I have to, are not this county, but very few are not. I mean, we have a fair number of people, maybe a couple hundred that come from Leelanau County and a handful from other counties, but primarily Grand Traverse.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Next one, old business, Pizza Wagon contract renewal. Hey, we were talking about that. The thought was to continue on with Chris's thought is to continue on while they do check out some other things. Ryan, there's some cantina, hospital things.
Yep.
Maybe you better say what you got going on.
So I essentially started looking into our vending machines and trying to figure out, I know we get revenue from them, but I couldn't find any agreement. So we're kind of exploring. We're going to try to get a hold of Pepsi, Coke, Canteen, and get agreements in place so we have something to work with. Essentially, we want to continue on with the Pizza Wagon contract. It is a contract that gets renewed every year. At the end of the year, Zidra meets with Chris and sometimes myself, and we go over the menu and pretty much try to improve the operation. I am going to try to work with Zidra to get her to take credit cards and debit cards to hopefully increase the revenue. She will be hopefully working out of the new concession stand on the Civic Center this year as well. So we're hoping with the increased activity at the park, we're hopefully we'll make more money with her.
Commissioner Merritt.
I have a couple of issues. One is exclusivity. Did we put an RFP out for this? We open up bids for new people to come in? Or do we just let this one person have exclusive use of a government facility? The facility belongs to the people. Is it the best revenue we're able to get for us? We're getting the best service out of it. I mean, it sounds bad that we have the same person gets a renewing contract with no sunset, that we don't have the opportunity to negotiate what's going on. And the other thing, we're the Parks and Rec Department, and it's not even close to a zero waste facility. We should have compostable plates and stuff in the contract, that they gotta use environmentally friendly stuff, not styrofoam. For the love of God, we're the Parks Department, we should be looking out for the environment.
Trust me, that's one of my projects I'm working on, one of many. However, as far as Zidra goes, I don't know if we wanted to put an RFP out for that. I mean,
Didn't like 2 people respond last year? It was
Yes, we've
Zidra
done
and-
this. This isn't.
Yeah, this is not just
Not
like
new.
for 10 years it's been going and hasn't been reviewed.
Yeah.
We did this not too long ago, and
Well,
there wasn't really much
Yeah,
interest.
Christine did a great job when
Let's
she came.
try
up a
to
lot.
be,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Christine, when she became the Parks Director, really took this on, and this contract, and I use that term very loosely, along with most of our parks contracts, were handshake deals. And between Christine and Ryan, they've been able to dig up and find old contracts. So just as a background for you, we did this last year. We did take it out for RFP. We came up with some new priorities as far as changing the menu to have more healthier options and, on and on and on. And I believe we had 2 responses to the RFP.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was at the most 2. If not, it was only her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like we had one other vendor, but they were just way out there. It was one that used a lot of local, more organic type products and.
I can guarantee you, with the composition of this board, if there was somebody that would have given more money to the county,
Yeah.
that we would have gone down that road.
And we do get a share of 17%.
17%.
17% of her gross sales.
Right, but we're handcuffed right now. If we want to do
Right.
an event there, we can't have a food truck because she's got to be able to do it.
Right,
And
so.
But she doesn't do it.
So this is what we did last year. This is where we got. It was a big deal just to get a contract. Honest to God, it was a big deal. There was just no contracts in parks for all these years. So we got her to agree to, do an RFP, make a proposal, and these proposals included amended things again, like a healthier options and cost share. And we brought up exclusivity last year, and that was one of the main reasons we made this a yearly review. Because at that point, with everything going on in parks, this was, of course, at the height of Kids Cove and the pool. It was not, we didn't have a response to our RFP that we had hoped for, number one. I remember specifically having that discussion, because we really thought we were going to have a
But
bunch
it
of
could have
vendors
been all the
come
bad
forward.
press you're getting with the two.
I don't think for that one.
No,
I
it
don't want to
just-
be there if they're going to close the pool, because there goes half my business.
That was before
I
then.
think it was the lack
that was
of
before
9 to 5. It was
Yeah.
like you were serving during events, and I
Yeah.
think more of the vendors were interested in having a snack bar that had a constant flow. I think honestly that's what it was. So in the long run, or since then, just to let you know, to catch you up, we have also invested dollars from our parks fund to renovating an old building. I don't know what it was, like a storage building. It had stuff in it. So that we now have a second location for a snack center. It's near the skate park. And a lot of that was in response to, first of all, sales to American Legion Baseball and that sort of thing, so that was great. But also to a response to something that David's been working on for years, which is increased safety and monitoring at the skate park area, which all of us, I think, on this board really believed in. So that took some time, and we had some funding problems, but that snack bar is now open again. And Sidra was an integral part in that being developed. But I think there's room now with the contract. I mean, if you wanted to do an RFP, that's certainly the pleasure of the board. But if we wanted to just go with Zidra again, but discuss and renegotiate the exclusivity, I think there's potential there because she does have that second location. She certainly couldn't service with her type of business the amphitheater area, I don't think.
Well, and we're talking about some one-offs, you know,
Yeah.
maybe 4 in the
Right.
summer. I mean, you really have to, I think it's a conversation to just have at least, and nothing's in stone. We have the clauses, I mean, all the contracts we do these days.
We did a really
Yeah.
good job on this
Yeah.
contract to
Yeah.
leave the door open for this. One of
Yeah.
the things she was upset about was the ice cream truck. She felt that that was a daily, many times a day, interference to her selling literally the exact same product at the ball field. And I understood that, I think we all did, got where she was coming from.
But we couldn't control that, couldn't we?
We couldn't control
Yeah.
it. It was a
It's
city
city.
ordinance, and we
Right.
couldn't control it. So now, if we were to look at a contract and do, one of the things we've been doing lately is have it up to the discretion of the director, like for alcohol now. It used to have to go before the board, but now if an event wants alcohol, Christine has the ability to do that. She could also have the ability to discuss things like a food truck at an alternative location that wouldn't interfere with Zidra. And I think we were really good at leaving the door open for that discussion last year.
I think one of the issues is we're going to have a group who wants to use the facility to do a comedy show. And they want to be able to do food or something there, and alcohol, and whatever. And they're limited by what our contract with somebody else has. What if that stops other groups from coming because they can't do that? That may not be an issue, it's just an
So-
idea.
Like in that situation, it's not that we're not going to tell them that they can't bring food or anything. It's just all, it's going to be a decision that includes Zidra on it. So, there's going to be a decision made, a conversation between Chris, Zidra, and probably myself on what kind of an agreement would work. Like, we had the circus come to the Howe Arena a handful of years ago. Zidra is selling popcorn for $2 a box, and they sell their popcorn for $5 a box. What ended up happening is the circus paid Zidra, I think, $750 to stop selling popcorn and slushies. And, so
She has
what we need
flexibility.
is some sort of formula for how to handle when people do want to have
It'd just be
food.
nice to have it in black and white, so when we have someone that's looking at doing an event that we're hoping to develop that facility into, we don't have to have this huge negotiation. They go, this is too much work. I'm working way too hard to put on one event to make it where I'm breaking even.
Tom?
Here's where I have a red flag, as the guy who just walked into the room. We're offering a guaranteed audience to somebody. We are giving them a revenue stream that we tap to the tune of only 17%, which is peanuts in the food business. And we're afraid to insist that they take credit cards. We're talking about it like they're doing us a favor, and it's 180 degrees the other way around. And we should not be sitting around saying, well, they have to be involved in the decision, because we're the governing board. It's our land, it's the events that we're bringing in, and if, I don't know that you only had 2 people apply to an RFP. That sounds to me like a bad RFP, because
We could redo that.
because it's an opportunity to make money, that there's plenty of people who are looking for that sort of vending business. We just have to make sure that our RFP is broad enough, is clear enough what the opportunity is, if we're not getting the vendors we need. But the idea that we have to be at their whim is bizarre to me.
Well, I think we had and again, I'm not offering a defense, I'm just keeping you up to date. We had this exact same conversation last year. We were so embroiled in 2 major battles. Zidra was willing to work with us, accommodate us. We made it a renewable contract, so it had, again, Parks didn't have renewable contracts. We didn't renegotiate. We found an employee that was working for contract at the pool that it wasn't even a legal contract, and it wasn't renewed. I mean, nobody looked at it. So you have to understand the giant leap we've made with our new director versus the previous one. So this was a conversation we intended to have this year. And I don't think there's anything wrong if it's the board's decision to put an RFP out and to discuss how the RFP's done. But I just wanted you to know that this was kind of something that was half done because we had an accommodating person willing to work
Right,
with
we
us during a
understand that.
difficult
Yeah.
time.
But now we're here,
Yes.
and we want to look at how do we get to where we want to be. We're better than where we were a year ago.
Oh, yeah, we didn't know if the Civic Center was going to be open.
Right.
At
Right, we're
the
a lot
end of
better
the
than we
year.
were a year ago, but we can make it better for the years to come. And I don't like when if we don't take an action, it automatically renews. Because, oops, we
least
missed the
there's a
date this year.
contract.
Right, but that was last year. Now let's fix it this year so that we have the opportunity to renegotiate that we want compostables, that we want credit cards, that we want
This is what we want.
whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's what fits our plan for the park. It shouldn't be the vendor
And I,
dictating what our park looks like. We should dictate how they fit into our park.
and how many of us carry cash anymore?
Tom
You're
does.
so, no, I don't. You're
I
right.
don't either. I never
Last summer,
carry.
I was at American Legion ball game and I couldn't get,
I mean, I'm lucky if I've got change for a parking
'Cause I
meter
had
in my
no money.
pocket.
No, I
you
have 4
know?
kids,
mean,
I don't have cash.
I think that'd be a great item to
They have
address.
it all.
Do we have a time frame here? Does this contract
That's
end
what I was
next
saying.
week? Or do we have 6 months to talk about it?
The contract expires every year, December 31st.
Yep. So she's working under the
She's
evergreen
got
effect.
Until December, she's got to,
Yes.
we can attempt to renegotiate with her, but she doesn't have
Well,
to do
let's,
anything at
but,
this
so
point.
we've got a year to do a
Yes.
new RFP.
Perfect. I
Well,
think that's a great
let's-
thing for
let's
the
do
business
one.
development to look at and bring back to the board.
But we're still going to approach her about the possibility of a food vendor for a few one-offs then?
I think you're right.
I think,
I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask,
All
right?
that takes is a policy change by this board, a vote on that, and allowing the director to have some kind of discretion to work with the contracted vendor. And then we go from there.
I think we should have Chris come back with something for us
Yeah,
that
I
she's
think we need
comfortable
to
with,
hear from the
because she's not here today, so it's kind of hard
yeah.
without getting her input, I think. Not you, Chris, the other.
I know.
And we also hope to have that second location of the snack bar open, I think, this year at the beginning of
Yeah.
the sports season,
Yeah.
right?
That gives us some
And that's going to
time.
help us
Yeah.
learn more of the revenue curve, and
Yeah.
we really were operating under a lot of what-ifs and assumptions last year, and then also the concern that we weren't going to even be operating anything, so.
That was my
Good
point
point.
too, because right now, we don't have that second location
Yep.
because it wasn't viable last year. There were delays.
Yep.
So if we do consider an RFP, et cetera, it would be a good idea to have this year's performance in hand so we know, is that second site viable? So any RFP is going to have to, explain, this was the revenue stream, this is the potential. We don't really even know that yet.
Yeah.
So, it's probably a good thing that we have it this way.
Commissioner Merrick.
I'll make a motion, we table this for 2 months until the business development and Chris can get together, bring it back so we know where we're at. I just like to be up to date on it.
We don't want to table it, we'll just let it die.
Yeah.
Okay, however, I think we're done talking tonight.
It's not an action item, so if we table it, then that requires a timeline
Yep.
stated.
But I would like to see it somewhat quickly
Yeah,
come back to
Christine,
us, so
well,
we're
we
not
can- we can-
November 31st going.
yeah, can we ask for input from?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. I will pass that on.
I'm sure she's going to watch this tape.
I'm sure
If
she's
not
She's
home.
Tom's
watching
at
right
home
now,
eating
coffee at home.
popcorn
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
There's the camera. All right. Proposed amendment to County Ordinance Number 31 regarding Twin Lakes swimming.
That would be me.
Christine Maxbauer, will
Yes,
you?
I brought this in front of the board. As you all know, we, after we had 3 tragic drownings in that lake, in North Twin Lake, over a 4-year period of time, that we severely restricted swimming in that lake. And that has worked. It really has. However, I was approached by swimmers, and I am an open water swimmer occasionally. It's not my favorite, but I do it occasionally, who want to be able to swim in that lake. And one of them happens to work for Mr. Cooney, and that is Christopher Tholen, in our prosecutor's office. And I said, I'm open to doing that, but I want to know that there's a way for our park rangers to control people just, because people, the kids have tried in the past to swim across that lake. They are not good swimmers. They misjudge. They're young men, almost always, that make these poor decisions, and they have tragic endings. And so we have to somehow control this. That was my thought anyway, and that was the board's thought. I'm just trying to give you a little history here. So anyway, Kit came back, and he has done the research, and he is proposing, and I'm fine with it, that we amend our county ordinance number 31 to say that people may swim in any, may swim in any other than a designated swim area, which is designated by buoys. I think, I wish, bleh. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy or something, or I've had too much coffee. I don't know how he came up with this. He must have just pulled it, I think, in context of the whole ordinance. Basically, what he's saying is you can swim outside the designated swim area if you are wearing a qualifying flotation device, and then he identifies them. A Type 1 or Type 2 personal flotation device, as defined by the U.S. Coast Guard, or a wetsuit, and he defines that as well. Generally, you're not going to find kids coming over from the high school in wetsuits trying to swim across the lake. You're only going to find open water swimmers doing that. And so, anyway, I am going to move that we change our Grand Traverse County Ordinance number 31 to reflect Mr. Tholen's wording.
A second. Second, Dave. Discussion.
I'm not going to support that because I don't support the first portion of it, that we even banned swimming. As when you were looking at it, I was involved, spoke at public comment. I believe it's a public park, it's the citizens' property, and I think that's what people should be able to swim in any of the lakes that we want. There's been various studies and people who've reported that, yes, this is a more dangerous lake, and then there was someone else who said, I've done research and it's not any more dangerous than other ones. When I was in high school, I taught swimming lessons there for, I can't remember who the camp was. I just don't like the idea of restricting swimming, which is a dangerous activity on its own. If people get hurt going, or if people die riding their bike to the Civic Center, we're going to close the Civic Center down because it was dangerous traveling on 8th Street. I understand why you guys did it, and I know the pressure from the parents that were here. Speaking on that, when I was in the Coast Guard, I witnessed many individuals die. I held kids in my hand as they took their last breath. It's very traumatic. But to restrict my ability to go there without a life jacket on because of some other tragic event.
You can swim in the designated swim area.
I can wade in the designated swim area. But to not be able to swim in the entire lake because I don't have the appropriate life jacket, wetsuit, doesn't make sense to me. I appreciate making a carve-out for a particular group who isn't going to make noise, but it's not suiting everybody. We see carve-outs all the time where there's somebody who wants to do something, so we'll figure out a way to appease this group, which happens to be open water swimmers.
You know, Commissioner Merrick, I greatly appreciate your perspective, and mine is very different than yours. I did swim in that lake, and I do believe that lake is very, very different. And we had this discussion at length previously.
I was here for that as well.
Yes,
I remember that.
most lakes, when you can see as they gradually become deeper. This one, you can take a step in 1 foot in one direction or another, and you literally are suddenly underwater. It's a very, very dangerous lake, and I do believe that's what happened to Owen. In any event, that's my motion, and I appreciate your perspective and why you are not supporting it.
But it's not that I don't believe that more people should have access. I think everyone should have access without restriction.
Christine and I have disagreed on this from the beginning, but I agreed with her on this rule, and I agree with her on the rule change. And I just want to reiterate something. It's an inland lake, so it's riparian rights. Therefore, the whole lake is not all public property. It's pie-shaped, and the majority of Twin Lake is actually private ownership, and so that would go out to the middle of the lake in a pie shape. So we're not restricting access to a completely public lake. It's mostly a privately owned lake. And the private owners weren't real excited about people dying in the lake in front of them either. So I think that there was pressure from them as well to have us be responsible as we were the access point to these unfortunate tragedies. So.
Having the designated, sorry.
Pete Albers.
I have to.
Yeah, we'd had, since I've been on this board, we've had extensive discussion on this issue. We've got 3 dead people, and that carries a lot of weight on this board, and it has in the past. All of us had mixed emotions on this, and one of the, I might mention, one of the constructive things that came out of this discussion is we all agreed that there was a better site for the swim area. And when you look at the bathymetry of the area, the way that the slope goes from the shore down, as an example, we identified an area just a little bit further down the shore and still on park property, which would make a much better beach area. So if we ever wanted to expand the swimming, there's a much better site than that little roped off area, which is a waiting area until you hit the rope and then it goes like this, and that's what happened to at least the last person. They stepped and they were gone and they couldn't swim. So there is sort of a compromise solution for general purpose swimming if we get the resources and the time to relocate down the shore a ways. There is a better place to have a general purpose swim area. However, that's a little bit of history.
I just wanted to explain why I was voting no, and I was here for all
I
of
know
those
you were.
meetings.
Yeah.
So I have the history. Commissioner
Right.
Kardashian does not.
Catch it.
Yeah, so
Kardashian.
we spent some time talking about
That's
this.
fighting
but
words, buddy.
I wanted to bring you into it, Tom.
my-
I agree with Andy, but I would support it because I'll take an inch even if I want a mile.
All right. Thank you.
My one concern about these qualifications that are here is, on the surface, they look good when I first read it, and I started thinking about this, and I checked into wetsuits. I know what these wetsuits are. I know what they look like. And, of course, most of us probably know what a Type 1 or Type 2 is. But, simply wearing a Type 1 or Type 2 PFD and saying, I'm going to go for a swim in May out here, I'm legal. And somebody goes out there wearing their skivvies or something, and suddenly they get hypothermia out there and they can't come back. You've got a problem out there again. So that's not a way to avoid people getting into trouble. It just provides them a legal way to go beyond the rope. They may not die from drowning, but hypothermia may create a real issue. As far as wetsuits goes, I would certainly agree that the casual swimmer, the high school kids or the drunks or whatever, are not going to arrive wearing a full wetsuit. However, a wetsuit is not a flotation device, and you could still have somebody making bad decisions out there using a wetsuit short, which is nothing more than a pair of briefs. That's not going to insulate your body. Or a wetsuit jacket. There's nothing from the waist down. The whole hypothermia issue is still there. So despite the superficial indication that this is an improvement, it might be, there's still the issue of risk, and that's the reason why we voted before to close it, because of the 3 people who died. So, I'm very ambivalent on this. It's not going to remove the risk entirely. Is it going to be an improvement? Maybe. I don't know. But I think we all ought to think about what these devices really are and what their limitations are. It's not going to eliminate risk. It's just going to make it easier for a certain user group, namely people who are open water swimmers, who happen to wear wetsuits and who happen to really know what they're doing to go out there and swim. No open water swimmer is going to wear a Type 1 flotation device and swim across that lake.
No.
I guarantee you.
No, you're not.
That's just an excuse for someone who can't swim to go out there beyond the rope and just paddle around. That's all it is.
Rodetta.
Quick
Anyway.
question, Ryan. We would not have any more supervision than we have now, correct? Thanks.
Anybody else?
I would like a roll call vote when you go for it, then.
Oh, that's fine. I'll support this, Christine. Like Tom said, I'll take what I can get.
You'll take the inch.
I do share Andy's
Will
opinion.
you
We
state
did.
the motion again before we vote,
Yeah.
please?
We sure, well, I'll have Christine do that again. The wetsuit part, they are flotation device. Try and sink in a wetsuit.
Not easy.
Shorts only?
Even shorts only. And they're not shorts. That's not true how they cited that.
Right.
But it's not.
It's called a shorty. It
It's
means
not-
a shorty.
It's the same definition, but
It's very small.
that, and I don't know anybody that's ever wore those, ever.
Swim under the water.
No.
Any other
They
discussion?
do help you float.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, we're going to do a roll call vote. Ryan, please. I'm sorry. Christine, you want to restate your motion one more time, please? I'm sorry.
I'm moving to change Grand Traverse County Ordinance Number 31 as reflected in your packet, which has been researched by our civil counsel at the county.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan, sorry.
Commissioner Albers?
No.
Commissioner Grimes?
I support.
Commissioner Herron?
No.
Commissioner Kropos, no. Commissioner Leroy?
No.
Commissioner Merrick?
No.
Commissioner Maxbauer?
Yes.
Commissioner, sorry, I'm still learning your name.
Kachadurian.
It's easy. Don't make it hard.
Kachadurian.
I tried to
I
ruin
support
for
it.
him.
And Commissioner Roth?
I support it. 4-4.
It fails.
Failed.
Motion fails.
I make a motion that we remove section 1.2 D3 to allow swimming anywhere in the lake.
Any seconds?
Had to go with consistency.
It's worth a try, Andy.
If it wasn't 10 to 9, I'd have supported
Didn't get a second, so it fails. All right. Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs discussion. Can you add anything to that, Ryan?
Yes, I intended on having an information sheet for this, but I've run out of time, so I'll just talk about it. I went to a Cultural Affairs Summit at Interlochen Arts Academy a few weeks ago, and I'd like to entertain the idea of implementing cultural affairs into our Parks Department. A lot of what we do, we use it already, but it would open doors to bring in more funding, I believe, from various different agencies, and I just kind of wanted to generate some discussion on it and see what you guys' thoughts were.
Any questions, anything, anybody?
Where would you be holding it?
It's not something that it's just like if something came up, we'd be able to implement it, like the amphitheater, it's a music venue. To give you an idea of how we could bring in additional funding, we could try to apply for a grant, let's say, replace the bleachers in the arena, and then we could try to get a grant for that to make that into a concert venue. But then we also have the bleachers that could be used for the ice arena as well. So it could kind of tie two things into one. I apologize. I'm really tired too, so
That's
I'm not,
okay. Right.
not presenting this the greatest right now.
That's all right.
I think it's
We're
fine.
all tired.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing
looking at it.
I'm opposed to, based on what you've said.
And it's very common with other parks departments to have it tied into it, and I'd put more research into it before, we do anything.
I'd definitely like to hear more in the future on what this all involves. When it's not 10 to 9, we're all exhausted from our day.
Yeah.
If we had something to review before the meeting, so we'd know what to ask you appropriately.
Yeah, and I'll bring it up again, and
Perfect.
I'll have hopefully an information sheet to kind of pass around and, show you guys the pros and cons.
The earlier we can get that information, the better it is for me to read and process, so I know what to ask you.
Right, before it comes in the packet, I agree.
Okay. Well, I'll work on something, and as soon as I finish it up, I'll send it out.
Thank you, Ryan. Project Fresh, Lori.
Good gravy. It's late.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's try to make these quick. Project Fresh, for those of you who don't know, is a program that the Senior Center does every year. The state of Michigan has a program that they put out throughout the state to get fresh fruits and vegetables into the hands of seniors. And we buy coupons from the state that the seniors are given to use at local farmers markets. In the good old days, the state gave us most of the coupons, and we didn't have to pay for them. But that funding was cut, and rather than eliminate that program, when the Senior Center Network came into being 5 years ago, we just made that part of our budget because we believe very strongly in the value that it brings to the community, not only to the seniors getting the fruits and the vegetables, but the farmers, that's where the money goes, is straight to our local farmers. So it's a win-win situation. The seniors have to be income eligible, so it's for low-income seniors. They're 60 years of age and older. Each senior gets $40 worth of coupons, and they're good from like May 1st through October 31st, I believe it is. So many of them will save some for summer harvest and then save some for fall harvest type of thing. They really make that $40 go a long ways. When the state offers the Double Up Buck coupons, Double Up Bucks program, where food cards are worth double their value, these Project Fresh coupons are also worth double the value. So that's been offered a couple of years, so that $40 actually comes up to $80. We've budgeted for this, it's in our budget, but because of the dollar value, we do need permission to spend it. So that's what I'm asking for today.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the expenditure of $7,500 to purchase the 375 Project Fresh books. And you're receiving 100 at no charge, so you're actually getting 475.
I support that.
Discussion.
I have a question.
Nope, one at a time. Pete.
Beat you to it.
Gotta raise your hand.
Quick question, Laurie. The 375 plus 100 equals 475, but last year you distributed more than that.
Yeah, they
Are
had some
you
extra ones last year, and so they gave us.
Are you anticipating a decreased demand, or?
No, it's become based on availability. Last year, in the middle of the season, the state called me and said, we have some extra coupon books that other counties did not use.
Okay.
Do you want them? And of course, I said yes. and we
Okay, so
took them.
this is adequate.
This
You're
is
not
what
just
I will have for
restricting
sure.
yourself. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Tom, sorry.
My question was, you said that it's good for the seniors and good for the farmers, and I don't remember any mention of farmers in the charter of the senior center. And I'm wondering why, I'm wondering why promoting farmers is now in the charge of the senior center.
Well, it's not, but it's supporting the community. So, I mean, the money is just going right back into the community. So,
Well,
that seems like a
you
win-win.
listed that, I mean, I think the senior center millage is generally for senior center activities, not to redistribute to the community. Wouldn't you say that's a fair assessment of why people pay that tax?
Yeah, but the value to the senior is getting local farm fresh fruits and vegetables.
Are they eligible
access.
for other food assistance as well, do you know?
The
Since
guidelines to get the food coupons are not as restrictive as the food benefit program, but the people who get the food benefit program are eligible for the project.
Right, but there's a gap in there.
There is a
where
little bit of
there's-
a gap.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no.
Do we need a roll call with money being
It's
authorizing a
small.
budgetary?
The budgetary. Senior Center Travel Programs, Lori, continue on, please.
Yeah, okay, in your packet is a recommendation, or actually not a recommendation, I guess it's a suggested solution. I don't think there's any action required on this, it's more of an FYI. At the end of the year, last year, there was concern raised about the Senior Center's travel program. For those of you who don't know, we have quite an ambitious travel program that we put trips together for seniors to take throughout the year. We do about a dozen, between 12 and 15 trips. We do day trips where we are just right locally within the state of Michigan. We do extended trips where we might go to New York City or Branson. And then we do at least one overseas type trip, generally speaking. It generates revenue for the senior center, and it provides traveling opportunities for our members. At the end of last year, their concern was raised because my aunt is a volunteer at the senior center, and she was the person that provided the hosting or the escorting of these trips totally as a volunteer for a number of years. I think 5 or 6 years she's been doing it. But it was viewed as a conflict of interest because she was related to me and that she was able to take these trips with the seniors. So some changes need to be made, and the recommended changes that I've come up with are in your packet, and I guess we're hoping to implement that. I'm not sure why there's not an action required, but there's action required. I guess if there's any questions or...
If Mr. Cooney is good with this, then so am I.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have involved him. I'll have to make sure with Christine that she's actually gone over word for word with him, but I know he's been involved in the discussions about it for sure.
Yeah, I would want civil counsel. Whatever Mr. Cooney says is what I do.
His guidance was what I took into consideration.
Most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's just an FYI, so if you do have any questions about the travel program, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
I have a question, because I always have a question. It hasn't changed, she's still going to go on these trips, just not as a representative of the senior center?
Right.
Is that an opportunity that's been offered to others, or is it, how is she?
It will be after this year, but it's going to take time for us to train someone to do that. I wouldn't just send a random person out there to be responsible for 45 people on the road. So we'll spend
So how
this year
has the
training.
relationship between you and her changed, other?
The travel companies that we work with, they will be responsible for her activity now.
Are they employing her?
Yes. They're willing.
And can they employ somebody else? Are we
They
giving them
probably
the
can, but
opportunity?
they probably won't want to.
Why won't they want to?
She's a known commodity, so they didn't hesitate to take her on. They worked with her.
So you made the recommendation that she be the one?
Yes.
So the conflict remains? If you're recommending somebody, whether or not she's employed by the senior center and she's your family relation, the
I asked if
conflict
they
has
would
not
be
been
willing,
severed.
I guess I didn't know if I recommended, but I asked if they would be willing to do that. The integrity of our program is dependent on our ability to keep somebody who knows what they're doing, taking these people out on the road next year, so that was a way for us to continue that.
Yes, but you have not severed the conflict of interest, because we made it would be different if there was no, in order for there to be no conflict of interest, that needs to be a blind selection on the part of the travel company.
Well, the other
And it
part
was
the other part that's in here is that I myself cannot have any involvement with any of the decision-making on those trips that she's involved with. So somebody else in the department will have to take responsibilities that I previously took.
Will you
so that
remain
I'm
the
not
director of the
interacting.
department?
Pardon me?
Will you remain the director of the department?
I'm the manager of the department.
Manager?
Christine is the director of the department.
But the person making that decision will know that you're related to her.
Well, everybody knows I'm related to her.
Okay.
It's been going on for 6 years or more. It's never been something that we've hidden or, it's common knowledge. that I'm related
Okay.
to her.
I'm not comfortable with it, but.
Any other discussion? Okay. On to the Senior Center Network Elder Law.
Yeah, so this is an action item. This is another program that we've had at the Senior Center for a number of years. I've been trained by the Elder Law of Michigan to assist seniors with filing for food assistance. For those of you who are familiar with the food application, it's a 36-page document that's very cumbersome and laborious, and there are many barriers to seniors applying for food assistance, and one of them is that laborious contract that they need to fill out. The other is having access to the application, and just the stigma associated with going to DHS and standing in line and talking to people. So trying to break down all of those barriers by them being able to do it in a friendly, familiar place, being the senior center with a person that they know, and we do it electronically, so they avoid the whole 36-page document. So it's been a good program. But every year we enter into this letter of agreement with Elder Law of Michigan to do that. It's the same agreement that we've had year after year, but it is still an agreement, so we need your permission.
Anybody want to make a motion? Christine?
I will move to have the Senior Center Network Manager execute the Elder Law Letter of Agreement for 2016 and in future years unless agreement language has changed. If changes to the language are made in the future, then a draft letter will be reviewed by the County Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Support. Support, Pete. Discussion. Discussion. Just a quick discussion. I read it word for word. Most of the costs that come to the county get reimbursed by this program, so I think it's a wash. I'm certainly in support. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
We're at that magical public second comment.
Chased them, they've
We
all
chased everybody away
chased them
tonight.
away.
Since I see no public comment, we're going to go to notices and commissioner comments. Would any commissioner like to share any comments or?
I just want to
Yes, sir.
say
Ma'am.
thank you all for serving. I mean, it's after 9 o'clock. It's a considerable amount of personal time that you're contributing, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Any other comments? Since I have the power, we are adjourned.
Yay.
And I got to go bathroom.